106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Wednesday, March 27th. I'm your host, Gabe Tape. This is Double Impact. I'm here with my co-host, the great, the hilarious, the midnight lover himself, Jericho Green. And of course, we have the amazing, my favorite British Texan, Matthew Marsden. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Are there many other British Texans? I don't know.
Sorry.
I always get like, it's like, hello, everyone. Chip, cheerio, and all that. All right. Yeah.
You know what? That's something I wanted to ask you about, Matt. And thank you for being here, man. Thank you
it's my pleasure.
for taking the time. Thank you for taking some time away from your family
to
hang out with us, man. That's awesome. But let's, because I don't think I know any British people. I used to know a guy. I used to work with a British guy, but not anymore. So kind of break down the accents. Because, here in America, you have I guess what you would call the posh, the royal family kind of accent, the Oxford, and then you have like the Guy Ritchie, Jason Statham, kind of like that.
Think about what you're doing.
I guess I think from our point of view, I guess your accent would be like the normal British accent, not, I guess extreme in either way, but kind of what are those areas like where where those accents come from?
Well, that's a great question. So, for someone like the Queen, the King of England, that's they used to call it like the Queen's speech, but it's basically like what they call RP, pronunciation, which is all they talk like this, and no one really talks like that, unless you're a lord, but not really. Listen, I'll give you guys a class in a minute if you want on how to do the accent. So, and then
you gotta know, Matthew. Jericho and I are not the most serious guys on this show. We do a lot of improv, and we do have British lords that we impersonate. We don't know who these guys are, but they do compare notes from time to time. So,
that's very good.
Oh, cool, little boy.
Talk like that all day.
So nobody really talks like that. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, well, I mean, they not really. I mean, there are some people that do. They used to, they're the kind of people that went to Eton and Harrow, which are the very, very, very posh schools. I mean, that's like the aristocracy. Guy Ritchie, in the Guy Ritchie movies, it's Cockneys.
Okay.
So they talk like that. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have any K's. So it's like, not like. We like, talk, like not talk. bull. So you know what I mean? It's kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like it's like nice to see that, Gabe. You know, nice boat race you got there, which means face.
Well,
Up
okay,
the
can
apples.
you explain that to me? The Cockney rhyming slang. I just learned about this like 5 years ago. Fascinating. Do people actually do it, or is it like
Yeah, they do. They do. Yeah, I mean,
How do you keep track though? Because if I just make up something I think rhymes, how do we agree on what we're rhyming about? Couldn't it lead to a lot of
everybody
confusion?
knows. Everybody knows. So there's like
Oh,
established like up the apples and pears, the
that's up the
stairs.
stairs, right? Up
Yeah,
the stairs.
like your boat race is your face.
Okay.
They'll say like me old China plate, mate.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be something else. Much okay.
And then there's no, it's not that. No,
Bees and honey. What's bees and honey?
I don't know.
None of the miser are gonna have to.
None of the
help.
miser probably made that up.
I don't
He's
know.
that clever. He's that
But look,
clever.
I mean, I when I did China, the movie I did with Michael Caine, I lived down in the East End of London. It's southeast of London. I actually lived in London for a little while. So there's certain things like you would hear people use all the time, like "You're having a Steffi, aren't you?" And that's a Steffi Graf laugh.
Does she have a weird laugh? She's a little too old for me.
Yeah, or
remember.
giraffe. You're having a giraffe, aren't you? You know, so some
Oh,
people, yeah, giraffe
okay.
laugh. You know, just silly things
All
like
right.
that.
Okay.
Weird.
Bees and honey, money.
Real quick, one of the great members of the channel here. Think about what you think about. He got married last year, Matthew. He was asking us for marriage advice. He got married, but now look at this. His wife is in labor now. So God bless you guys, and I'll watch later. Dude,
Oh,
congratulations. I'm a father.
Congratulations.
It's the greatest thing in the world. I'm a father of adult children. I have a granddaughter. Greatest thing in my life, Jericho. And then Matthew puts us all to shame. He's got a lot of children.
yeah, I have a
So,
lot of children.
Yeah, a lot of kids.
Because they're
So,
fun to make, man. We
They
didn't
are.
design it that way, you know?
You know, it's funny because people always say to me, like, you have 9 kids, don't you have a television? And I'm like, I know what I'd rather do than watch telly.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
well, let's
but
see.
yeah.
9 kids times about 10, 15 minutes. That's not that much time.
10, 15 minutes, you kidding? That's like 5 times as long.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's like a bull rider. 8 seconds and you're off.
Yeah.
That's it.
Might
Yeah.
take a lot of your time. That's good.
Yeah. So that's a Cockney rhyming. That's
Mhm.
Cockney, and there's just slight variations around that from the south to the North London to East London, and then where I come from, which is Peaky Blinders land.
Okay.
They kind of talk like that, you know. I mean, that's like more of a Brummie, you know, like from Birmingham. But I'm actually from the Black Country, which is what
Hey,
Whoa,
I'm
whoa,
right
whoa.
here. I'm
Hey,
right here.
Jericho's
You wanna
from
hear
Black
it?
Country too.
Ja, maar right, ja, maak je daar. Ja, maar right, is Boston here. That's kind of like Black Country. So
Oh,
that's
amazing.
what Tolkien based Mordor on, the Black Country. True
Ah,
story.
okay. Now
Yeah.
let me ask you this, Matt. Does the word brev make your blood boil like it does mine? Because you'll see it a lot on social media, the younger
Oh, all
crowd.
right,
Hey,
brev.
brev, and everything.
Reverend.
It's like bro here in America. The younger kids always say bro. It just drives me
Do you know what?
absolutely insane.
I'll tell you something, Jericho. There's an interesting phenomenon that I found when I just went back there. Is when I was growing up. Well, I moved down to London initially when I was 17 or 16, 17. That's a whole story. But so East London was a very specific accent. It's like that. You know what I mean? It's like I was talking like that. That's very much a East London accent. But the Black community actually had, obviously, like most minorities, had a little bit of a twinge on it, right? Like a little bit of I don't want to say spice, but there was the especially because it's like in the UK we more had West Indian blacks there. Like we didn't really. Although one of my best friend growing up was from Nigeria, but it was mainly from the Caribbean.
Is he a prince by chance, or was he
A
a prince from Nigeria?
No, he wasn't.
And
He wasn't.
$30,000 to make 3 million.
No.
We met online.
Okay.
But
Gotta be
they would.
careful.
But they had, like, it's like any kind of like subculture. They had their own kind of language. And I was dating a black girl at the time, so I was very well attuned to the accent, the language. when I went back to and it was very specific, like East End, that community, right? When I went back to England last year, there were white middle class kids doing it.
Really?
And they were doing that kind of like that Brev. No,
Yeah,
man, it's
yeah.
kind of like,
Brev.
all right, Brev. And like, yeah, I'm like, are you from the East End of London? I don't understand. And that is actually a thing now.
Yeah.
I've learned that it's a dialect that has grown in the 20 years that I've been away, that's kind of seeped through to the youth to make them, they feel like they're cool doing
Like
it.
social media, TikTok spreading it, you think? That's what I think.
Well, now you're saying that Brev thing. I mean, that totally makes total sense, but it comes from, all right, fam, Brev,
Oh, yeah.
all that, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're like a middle class white kid from suburbia, like you're not from the streets, and most of the people that I knew in that area were trying to get rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They didn't want to, you could slip into it, right, if you wanted to, but most people were moving away from that. So it's kind of very interesting phenomenon. I can't remember what it's called now. Maybe somebody on the chats knows what the name of it is. It's kind of weird.
Well, let me reverse it on you from Jericho's question. So now you've been in America for a while. You're down in the heart of Texas.
Yeah.
Are you picking up any Texas twang at all? You think you're saying y'all and stuff like that, or all you?
I said y'all on Twitter the other day for the first time because I mean, my kids do, because I think it's about adapting, right, and surviving and fitting in. But no, I mean, there's certain things that I've done that have. So, for example, I used to go to Starbucks, right? When I go to Starbucks when I was in LA, and I'd go up to the window or whatever, and I'd say, "Can I have a bottle of water?" And they go, "A what?" And I'll be like, a bottle of water. And they go, "Can you say that again?" And I go, "A bottle of water."
There you go.
Oh, okay. And I'm like, there you go. So they just, they give me the bottle of water. And that was it. So I do that. I don't, just because I don't want to go through a back and forth about this, but yeah, I mean, I've started picking up a few things up. I haven't really, as you can probably tell, I've certainly softened my consonants, which is part of doing the American accent, just softening that a little bit.
I feel like our British cousins, that's what you guys feel like to me, like cool cousins that I don't really know, but you seem familiar. That's what the British feel like to at least me as an American.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys can do our accent better than we can do yours. And I'm also mystified why a lot of British singers sing in an American accent. I've never known why that happens. When you sing, like if you sing at church, you're singing Happy Birthday, do you sing in American English or do you keep it British?
Do you know, that's a really interesting thing.
Why don't you sing for us right now? No, just kidding.
No, actually, here's a little bit of a trivia that you guys probably don't understand. Not understand, but that I actually did a single with Beyonce.
What?
Yeah. So I did a cover in 1998. I did a cover of "She's Gone" by Hall & Oates with Destiny's Child as my backing artists. So
wow.
Wow, I didn't know you were a singer.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, the thing is, as a British actor, you got to be good at as much as you can be, right? Like you need to be able to do everything to just maximize your chances of making money and being and getting work. So why do they sing in American accent? Mainly, I think because the phrasing, especially a lot of the blues, had a massive influence on British music. An American artist. It's a very interesting synergy, right? I was watching this thing the other day on the Beatles and how they were massively influenced by Elvis, who was obviously influenced by other artists, but mainly black artists, which changed the way that his phrasing was in music. And then the Beatles picked up on that, but then when they came back over, they didn't like what he was doing later on, and there's this kind of back and forth, right? Like the Beach Boys got better because they were listening to the Beatles, and the Beatles listened to the Beach Boys and Pet Sounds, and they were really They were really inspired by them. So I think there's been a cultural back and forth, but it just sounds right, I think, with an American accent, and you tend to, again, you don't really want to be staccato with the way you sing, right? You want it to flow. And American English flows a little bit easier. Like I said, like instead of saying water, you say water, and it's just more melodic. I think they just smooth over those things. But also, in just so you know, this is a little bit of an interesting experiment for you. So this is the reason why Brits are better than Americans at doing the accents is twofold. Firstly, we have to be good at what we do to go through the filter system, right? So the filter system is theatre. Normally, theatre, you get recognized in theatre, you go to television, you get recognized in television, you do British movies, you get recognized in British movies, you either go to American television and then or film, and then the pinnacle is American movies, like Hollywood movies, or it used to be anyway. So what you're doing is as you're moving through the filter system, the people that can't do it don't get through for the most part, right? So you're getting the best actors pretty much. That's why everyone's like, why are all these British actors good? And you're like, well, they've been filtered through the system. Whereas you can walk off the streets in the States and be a big success.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the greatest, to me, the two greatest living actors are Denzel and Daniel Day-Lewis. Like Denzel,
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I think
Daniel Day-Lewis is it's unreal what he's able to do. I don't even know.
Yeah, with most actors, and Dean will tell you this, like most actors are of a level, right? Like we're all around, like might be a little bit better or a little bit worse. And what it really boils down to is who's making the film. Is the script any good? Is the directing any good? Right? And that will elevate you. Or like, I mean, you can see this because there are people that have done, like Chris Hemsworth and a bunch of others that were on soap operas. I was on a soap opera in the UK. Slightly different because Ben Kingsley and all that have been on that, but you see that, and then you see him step up into massive movies, and it's they're like, okay, I can do it, right? So the quality is of a level, but I do want to say this about Daniel Day-Lewis is he's so far above everybody else. He's so far above. I mean, I think that this is the way I'd put it. I think you've got everybody.
Yeah.
Then you've got like Denzel and Gary Oldman. Maybe
that's a good one. Yeah. Gary Oldman's.
And then you've got Daniel Day-Lewis, who is ungodly. He's just on a different planet to everybody. There's nobody that's anywhere near as good as him, in my opinion.
His last movie was about a tailor, and I couldn't stop watching the Phantom Thread. A tailor, and it was insanely entertaining.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very
Matt,
good.
Matt, let me ask you a quick two-part question. So, First question, is your wife also British?
No, she's not. She's from Malta. She's Maltese.
Okay, even better. So, your kids being raised here, do you find yourself trying to impart pieces of your I don't know, culture, but since you guys are from another country, do you find yourself kind of trying to give them a little Maltese and a little bit of, Great Britain, or is it just, we're raising them here and
they're Americans. They're Americans. I mean, I mean, I believe that you should embrace the culture when you come to a country. I mean, look, there are elements that. So my wife, the Maltese, I think when you've got a teeny tiny country like that, it's only like 19 miles by 20 miles. It's teeny. And there's only 400,000 of them in Malta, people in Malta. So that's it. That's the amount of Maltese are there. So they have a lot of very strong traditions. And I think that my wife, let's put it like this. The food is amazing, right? Because it's like Italian food. And so that's very strong in the family. What I impart to my kids is more about where I came from rather than that's their culture. Does that make any sense? I kind of say, look at the privileges that you have because you're here. And, I know it sounds silly, but You have two parents. I didn't. I was from a very working class. It's like the projects basically in the UK. They're not. They don't have that. So it's kind of like imparting that knowledge. And it's kind of weird in this day and age, right? I shouldn't be trying to tell my kids how lucky they are that they've got an intact family, but it's true.
Yeah,
that's how low the bar is now.
Yeah, I always say that, by the way. It's like my buddies come around and they're like, "Man, I feel like I'm not being a good enough dad. I did this," and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here, right? I've got my bar is so low that I turn up every day, and every day is a win, right? Because I'm in my kid's life every day." I know that's a low bar, but it kind of like frees me up a little bit. So I mean, we don't. In answer to your question, no. I mean, my wife my kids are proud. I think that their dad is from England and their mom is from Malta, but we tell them all the time, you're Americans. That's it. You're not like half Maltese and half English. Right. You're 100% American, and that's it. Like every other American, there's no difference.
That's great.
That's awesome, man.
And with 9 kids, what's the time like? How do you give each of them a piece of mom and dad? Because, I'm sure they get older, they're teenagers, all they want to do is be with their friends. But with their little kids, dad, mom. So how do you guys kind of balance that and go out and make the money so their stomachs aren't growling and the lights are on and all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think that one of the amazing things, well, there's multiple amazing reasons for having a big family, but one of them is that you actually don't have all that time with each individual one of them, right? So I know that might sound counterintuitive, but you do tend to like specify the time that you're with them. So you do try and carve out X amount of time a day to be with that child, to be with this child, to be with that child. But what it does is it makes them less needy, right? Because they're like, well, I can't run to dad right now because dad's dealing with this kid, and I can't go to mom right now because mom's dealing with that kid. I better figure it out. Right. And it really does work. It makes them way stronger. It makes them way more independent. It doesn't make them needy. They're just as loving as any other kid. And, looks like my 17-year-old, very independent, absolute alpha male. He's like 6'4", he's 220 pounds. He was an amazing swimmer. When we moved to Texas, it's weird because there's not really any swimming in Texas, but he, is very much his own man, whereas one of the other kids might be, well, they are a little bit more like needing of attention in certain aspects, and another one might be a little bit sensitive about certain things, and you have to kind of like, work around that. But what it does, what it's done for me, honestly, is as a human being, you've got two people that have kids that are in the same environment, and they're all different. They are all different. So it made me a better person in dealing with other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
Because I can kind of go, I go, oh well, that person's just like so and so and so and so. They just need a little bit of attention, And you're not so like quick to like, oh God, I'm kind of like, okay, I see what their needs are, and it's not necessarily because they're needy, right? As in, they have something lacking from their lives, just their personality. So it's made me a better person having a lot of kids. Does that make sense?
Awesome,
absolutely,
completely.
Something I wanted to ask you, staying with the family thing, because that's what it's all about for Jericho and I. We do a recorded show that's on this channel every Tuesday and Thursday morning called Datitude. And we just talk about all these problems you see out there about, men and women, divorcing, broken homes, and all these people doing all this bad stuff. And they're really leading themselves. They've been led astray by all this sin and indulgence and bad things. So we're all sinners, but you know what I mean? You see the state of dating and relationships, all those like Fresh and Fit and Red Pill videos. And it just, as a father and a grandfather of a young girl and then a father of an adult woman, it's just sad to watch all this stuff. And we're all artists, me and you, and Jericho too. He's a performer, he's a political commentator and a great comedian, and a future comic book author too with me. That's something else.
Nice.
But I want, because what attracted to me to you, Matthew, on Twitter, I don't remember how we started following each other, but I saw you saying the thing that I'm screaming. We need non-woke art. We need conservative people raised in the arts from a young age. And one thing conservative people, patriotic people, religious people, just non-woke people have done is abandon the arts and turn it over to this filth. And it's devil music and dirty movies. And I was raised that way. Like, don't watch music, or don't listen to music, don't watch movies. But they never discouraged me from being an artist, strangely. But I know a lot of people on that side, they don't encourage the arts in children. And then you get what we have today. And you were always saying we need financiers for new movies that are not woke and all this stuff. And that's what I'm doing with my independent comics and all that. Are any of your kids in the arts? Are you raising the new generation, the new army of artists and writers and dancers and singers, so we can have non-woke stuff that is high quality? Because that's always the problem, is the non-woke stuff. So much of it is corny and low quality. Are you raising the new generation?
Yeah, I mean, my three of my daughters. So funny. It's like 3 of my daughters are in ballet. My wife was a ballerina, so that's very strong in my family. My second oldest daughter is more towards, she's very sporty, right? She wants to know why she can't play football with the boys, like she's very competitive. But yeah, I mean, as far as the acting's concerned, I hate to say this, but because I have not seen enough movement towards funding the arts and funding, I hate saying like conservative art, but there's nowhere for them to go. And this is the problem, that there's just nowhere. So it's kind of difficult. I mean, I'd love my kids to learn it. I mean, number one, over here in Texas, I think that, I mean, look, it costs us a fortune to send our kids to ballet. I mean, not everyone can do that. And as far as acting is concerned, same thing. It's not really accessible. Whereas everywhere else in Europe, you can go and do that, and it's relatively cheap. So that's really unfortunate. And I had a couple of moments earlier on this year where I was like, you know what, should I just set up something here in Texas where I can help people, especially like, with big families. I mean, you can't be paying $20-$30 an hour in a big family for an acting class, and that's how much they cost, I mean,
times 9 kids, right?
Yeah, you can't do it. And so, and unfortunately, we don't have enough patrons of the arts, right? The left does it all the time. They're really great at doing that. Right. So, I mean, I do encourage artistic aspirations with my kids. I mean, my 17-year-old is an amazing writer. He's got it in him. So I encourage that. But as far as acting is concerned, where you're going to go to do these things where you're not going to have predators, right? Or they're not going to try and force you to do things that are contrary to your faith, your beliefs, and your morals.
What about like Nickelodeon? Never mind.
Well, exactly. And, yeah, when my son did the movie I Am That Man with me, I directed him in it, and I did it because he's got a photographic memory. He just reads a script and knows it. And I thought, child labor, I'll get him in. But I knew that he would be there. I knew I wouldn't have any difficulties with, difficult parents, which you get all the time, because it's like one of those things like, why would you ever want your kid to get into Hollywood, right? So he was really, really good at it, and immediately had agents come in and said, we want to sign him. And I said, absolutely not. There's no way. And I mean, music's the same thing, right? I mean, music is a little bit more controllable, but if you want to teach, I mean, let's put it this, for 8 kids, and even if you're looking at $10 an hour per kid per day, like, if someone, because you have to do ballet every day, let's say it's $10 a day, it's $50 a week without a Saturday. So let's say it's $60 a week, one kid.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
crazy.
it's
That's just out
prohibitive.
of reach for the average middle class
It
family.
is, it is, and it's really sad. And I wish that we could change it. In the UK, I was a part of something called National Youth Theatre, and I think that would be really great to have here, where there are people that give money, donate money, so kids that are talented can come through and get that kind of training and get into theatre, because we desperately need it. We desperately need stuff like
Hold
this.
on,
I'm
hold
just
on,
saying, hey,
hold on.
Wait.
Not to be outdone. Man, I
Oh,
got one right here.
everyone hold it up. Come on.
yeah.
Hey, we all
I got
got
it right
it.
here, man.
Dean
All
Kane
three
over there,
different covers
Colombia.
too.
Yeah.
But we need it. We need it.
need
We
it.
do need it. We need writers. We need screenwriters, and we need what we don't need. And this is what's great about your stuff, your material. Look at that. That's awesome.
I'll comment on this when you're done, but go ahead.
Okay. But we desperately need it to inspire the next generation, right? And but the problem is, and you mentioned earlier about people putting money into it. Look, we all know that we might go and watch a movie that's a Christian movie and then go, oh, I don't,
It wasn't good. It wasn't written well. It wasn't acted.
And then you go back and watch Die Hard, right? Or
Right.
one of the other. The investors think that that's what Christians want to see, right? And we've got to be more vociferous and tell them, no, we just want really great stuff. Right. We want Top Gun Maverick, which was awesome. You know, we want, and it doesn't have to be Game of Thrones, right? Where they're, you know, I mean, I got sent the first 2 episodes of Game of Thrones. They wanted me to audition for Jaime Lannister, and I read it, and I'm like, I'm not going in for this. But I just,
gross.
I just couldn't do it.
Come on.
Yeah, we need that. You know what I mean? We need artists like, you know, you guys need to be backed. And I keep telling people, you have to, like, even with something like this YouTube channel, just subscribe. It means something, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. This warmed my heart. So a big fan of Dean has become a fan of mine. Her name's Joy. I know her on Twitter, and she bought the book. She read it. She loved it. And here it is with her nephew and her father. So it's a grandfather and a young boy.
Oh,
I told my wife after seeing this, I don't ever have to make another comic book
You
again
win.
in my life. This was the goal. I'll keep making them. I want to make a ton of money. I want to influence people, but this is the goal right here. The look on that little boy's face, you know, and she said her dad commented, wow, comic books look so cool nowadays, because the guy that wrote it, me, and colored it, me, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. The guy I hired to illustrate it is a good friend of mine. He's been doing this for over 30 years, animating for Disney. Like, he's masterful. So this is the thing I'm talking about, and that you talk about, Matthew, that I love so much, is that we need the highest level skilled people doing this stuff. So we're competing with Die Hard, and we're competing with Spider-Man and all that. You can't trot some crap out there that's poorly acted, poorly sung, poorly drawn. If it's a comic, bad dancers, like whatever. People love art. People love art and entertainment. God created art. He did. He made it for us. It's a beautiful thing. And it's a shame that conservative people do not raise children up in this. I hope that little boy right there has his pencils out tonight, and he's tracing the drawings, and he's thinking of his own story. And I made a book that's engaging for adults. You can read it and be an adult, and you're totally thrilled. But when you're reading it to a kid and you flip the pages, you don't have to worry that something disgusting is going to be on one of the pages.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, my son loves it. My son, we started, actually the one with that cover, that same cover, we started reading it last night because Gabe sent it to me, but he has boxing and football and all this stuff. So last night was our first time we were home early enough, because his mom she's queen of the bedtime. And once bedtime rolls around, that's it. So we had a few minutes before bed to read it. So we read a few pages, and it's, and this is the second comic of Gabe's that we read, but it's, Dad, can we read one more page? And I do the different voices for different characters. So he's really into it. And, it's all about making memories. It's all about making memories with your kids and having something quality that you don't mind if they pick it up and read it on their own. You don't have to scope it out first, like one of these new TV shows or new movies, where if my daughter wants to see something new, I have to watch the trailer. I got to read up on it, because I know there's going to be some garbage in there. But this is something that, hey, yeah, go ahead, read a few pages, or I don't mind reading with them. I don't have to feel awkward that there's something gross in there that I'm watching in front of my kid.
Can you
'Cause that's
imagine
the worst.
if I made that book, Jericho, and I sent it to you and there were titties and all this stuff in it, and I expect you to read that to your kid?
No, there's
You
no
want
way.
to strangle me.
There's
What
no
are you
way.
sending this shit to my house for? Like,
And speaking of, Matt,
Mhm.
so with your kids, you're a young man, so I imagine the kids are probably pretty close in age, you know. With social media, you know, having an eye on your family and watching out for that, like I just mentioned, the movies, the TV shows, and stuff like that. How do you and your wife, and hey, shout out to the husband and wife team, because it takes a team to do this. 2
Yeah.
kids, 9 kids, it takes all hands on deck. But how do you guys kind of navigate this? Because this is new. We didn't have, and I hate to sound like an old man, in
Yeah.
my day, we didn't have
Yeah.
this. We had other things. There was action movies and stuff like that and bad music that our parents had to look out for. But now we have this social media thing, this cell phone thing where they can be plugged in to that screen all the time. So how is that for you and your family?
And that's a great question. I love you call me a young man. I'll take that all day long.
Oh, yeah.
But so we do not allow our kids. I mean, we have my 17-year-old has a phone, but it's completely monitored. We have everything monitored on it. We have a house phone that's a cell phone, which one of my daughters takes, but that is a I believe that one's a Gab phone, so there's nothing on that.
Mhm.
And my other daughter, because we have to take it. I mean, it's more for like knowing where they are and letting them allow them to call us when they need us to pick them up from somewhere, because everything's so spread out. And that's a pinwheel. So none of them have apps on. You can't really have apps on them. We have Custodio on all the computers, so we monitor the computers. They're shut down after a certain time. If they log into anything or anything like by accident, because there's actually a lot of that. You know, the evildoers are kind of sneaky and they'll misspell things, so you hit something and you get
right.
you know all that. So we have Custodio, which is really good. We did get a server that blocks everything inappropriate, but my wife decided to install that herself when I was in England, and it just knocked out all the it was just a
Everything.
disaster. And I was like,
Microwave doesn't work at your house now.
I was like, can you please not do it when I'm away, right? So no, we're very hyper vigilant.
Good.
The school that my kids go to has a no social media policy, and I would really try and encourage people to do that, because what's difficult is when your kid doesn't have social media and the other kid does.
Right.
It becomes like, oh, but sometimes I
Yeah.
feel out, and then you
Yeah.
just have to be the parent and go, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm not their parent. You
It's
know?
hard, but I thank my mom for that. I was not allowed to, we didn't go to concerts. I was not allowed to buy records of rock music and all that, and wasn't allowed to watch movies. Like literally went to the movie theater like 5 times growing up. And we had like 10 VHS tapes we'd watch over and over. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Blues Brothers, like The Greatest Story Ever Told, The 10 Commandments. It was like, you know, I wasn't allowed to be exposed to it. I remember 9th grade, I was not allowed to go to sex ed. I had to go to the library every day. My mom's
You
like,
missed
I
it, man.
don't know what
That
they're
was
trying to
fun.
tell you in there, but you're not going to be listening to these weirdo teachers.
Yeah, no, I mean that should absolutely be the responsibility of the parents. I mean,
Right.
I don't know what they're doing, you know, getting involved.
Mhm.
Well, I do.
It seems like they're hyper focused on it, by the way, you know.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
very weird.
Jericho, you
Florida.
talked about that book your son brought home the other day.
Yeah, he brought home this book and he told me, Dad, and he's in 2nd grade. He's an 8-year-old. He goes, Dad, I checked out this book from the library, and he reads like at a 4th grade level. So we're very excited about him reading books and bringing new books. He's always excited on library day. And he said, Dad, this book has kissing in it. And I was like, what? So I took it from him. I looked through it, and it didn't take long to get to the flamboyant, hey girl, and there's this cute boy, and then there's a kissing scene in it. And so, of course, I contact the principal. I'm like, why is this even on campus? Why
Yeah.
is there a book on campus where there's kissing? That has no place in a little kid's mind, let alone their library where they can look at it unsupervised. What is this? And apparently there's some committee that they're in charge of choosing the books that go into the library. So you got to go upstream to catch the perverts, because that's so weird.
Yeah.
Why in the hell would you want a book with any kind of sexual, any relationship stuff? That's just too heavy for a
Well,
kid.
you know why, right, Jericho? You know why.
Oh yeah,
Right, they're grooming him. They're totally grooming him, and then they make you feel bad. They're like, "Oh, you guys are Nazis because you're burning the books. You want a book ban and all that." You're like, no, it's if something is bad, if something is evil, it should be destroyed. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
The left especially are very, very good at doing that. Right, they're very, very good with words.
Yeah.
Right, they'll say, "Oh, you're anti-book. You want books? That's like the Nazis burnt the books, right?"
And Sig Heil. If that's the case, then give me my knee-high leather boots and my armband. Because hell no.
That Hugo Boss captain's uniform.
Please.
Jericho, I feel like the rest of the Aryan nation wouldn't like you too much, Jericho. I got a hunch they wouldn't like you.
I don't know. I like to try things out myself. I don't like to believe that.
Yeah, but, it is outrageous, right? I mean, but here's the thing, Jericho. If that's a physical book that is in a library, that's not this thing. Right. I mean, this thing has it all, right? It has absolutely everything on it, and you have to be completely engaged. By the way, I would like to give a shout out right now. So my friend saw this problem ages ago, the social media problem, and he started this charity called Humanality, and I'm sure you guys would love it. It's basically because we're now the rock and roll, like the rebellious generation, right? Like we're going against it. We're saying, no, we don't know. So what he did was he started this charity, and it's to encourage people on college campuses to give up their cell phones, or to give up the cell phones with the apps on them. And it's great. People have seen that the level of happiness goes up when you give these things away. And look, we're all guilty of it, right? I'm guilty of it, looking and going, okay, oh, did that tweet get that many? Oh, no. Yeah. So we're all guilty of it. So imagine what these impressionable kids are like. And we did not have that growing up, right? I'm certainly you, Jericho, you said you're a child of the 80s. We didn't have that at all. For me, like, I didn't even have a phone. We were so poor. We didn't have a phone in the house. There was a phone box down the end of the street. So I had no distractions. So guess what I did? I read a lot.
Right.
A lot. There were 3 channels initially in England, then 4, and I just read a lot.
Yeah. I remember when I came home and my mom said, we have this thing called caller ID. And I was like, you know who's calling before you pick up the phone? Like that, that's the era I come from. We had a rotary phone in the hallway, and
dude.
Yeah, don't mess up on the 5th number, because then you got to hang up.
Over this crap.
Start all over. Damn it.
Yeah. We had the phone with the 500 feet of the fusilli or spaghetti cord,
Yeah, you can rescue somebody with those phones.
To talk to my girlfriend in 8th grade. No, I love you. No, I love you. No, I love you.
My mom would pick up the phone. Hang up the phone. It's time for bed.
You're like, you hang up first. No.
Right.
You hang up first. You get married, you're like, all right, darling, bye. That's it. You're out, right?
Yeah. If you get a text, did you hang up on me? I thought you were done. So with that, that's a great segue into my next question for you, Matt. So you have boys and you have girls, and we all remember the intensity of those feelings. You could see them all day at school, and you couldn't wait to get home to talk to them on the phone, and just that feeling, that everything, mom and dad, you don't understand it. Just that love, that puppy love. Yeah. So do you find yourself, I have a son and a daughter. Do you find yourself treating the daughters a little bit differently and looking at their future a little bit differently than you do your son? Because, I mean, you almost can't help it. Like, because I understand my son. Being a man is different. Yeah. So I'm not going to treat you with such kid gloves, and I'm not into the whole like, oh, princess thing and all that stuff. I'm more of a realist, but damn it. Okay, so this guy named Gavin McInnes, and he was on Fox one time, and he was on with Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity.
Dude, that's the greatest piece of television of all time you're talking about right now.
Yeah, Gavin. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
Don't go back to me. Go back to a hunk.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing ever.
So
dude, it's brilliant.
If they were talking about spring break, and he asked him, how would you feel sending your son versus your daughter to spring break? And
Oh,
Gavin
no.
McKinnon says, he said, my daughter, hell no, you're not going. He said, my son, here's some condoms, use your head, be safe. So it's kind of maybe not that extreme, but it's kind of like that with your daughter. That's different. Like I know I used to be one of the wolves prowling the perimeter. I know what that's like. You're my baby. You know, it's just
every man
different.
Every man, I hate to interrupt, but every man has that nightmare realization after you've had your daughters and all that. Like, oh God, there are men out there that are like I was when I was 15 or 16. And you start like, oh, and you start thinking about, you do reap what you sow. You start thinking about that, and
and like you said, you have 3 daughters in ballet. So
yeah,
is
but
that
4 daughters altogether.
4 total. So
yeah,
is that kind of ratcheted up? And do your kids ever notice that maybe you're treating the boys a little bit differently than the girls? How do you,
I'll tell you what. Number one, you said something earlier, which was right. Is it's a team effort, right? It's boys and girls, and I think you definitely look at your daughters. Your daughters are in love with you, right? They love their dad, and in fact, there was a survey done, and they were talking about whether moms or dads took their kids to church, and there was like a 80% recidivism rate for kids going to church if the dad took them, and like 30% if a mom did.
right.
That's on both kids. So, and that's not demeaning the role of the woman at all, right? It's just that in certain aspects, kids respond in different ways, right?
You could say men and women are different on this channel, Matthew.
Yeah, men and women are different.
I know they traumatize you out there. We acknowledge that on our channel.
I know. I'm in the corner, like like in a fetal position, like rocking back and forth. No, but it is a team effort, and I think that we do know what boys are like, right? And women know what women are like. And right now, to be honest with you, women are just as bad, right? Like, I mean, the women out there are pretty terrible. If you look at certainly like Cardi B's lyrics and all that, I think it's pretty bad.
One thing about her lyrics that's beneficial to society is if you don't know a lot about anatomy, you could learn a lot.
Yeah, it's like a biology lesson,
right?
A smutty biology lesson. No, but I think that here's the key to it. I'm as I believe you're a Christian man, right?
Yes,
I believe. So the fact is the days of you sending your kids out into the wide world and thinking that they are going to be, stand up for themselves and fight for it, those days are over. They're gone, right? You have to keep your kids. I'm not saying that they can't go out and whatever, but you have to understand that certainly in their late teens, early 20s, you don't want them out in that. So like you don't want to send them to a secular college, for example. They will destroy them. They will take that. Because there's all these different influences coming from all different angles, bombarding them in the society as well, like telling them that what are you talking about? You want to save yourself for marriage, like you weirdo. But if you're in a situation where they have a bunch of people, like-minded people around them, and I don't mean brainwashed. I mean, I'm talking about, when I have friends around to my house, we talk about, Plato, Aristotle, we talk about the big things. We don't do trivial, and we talk about these issues, right? Societal issues, but on a deeper level, right? Because what is more important than being a parent? So what we have is we have our kids in a bubble to a degree, but they're in a bubble to the point where they can step outside of that, right? Because like if you look at men's brains don't normally form properly till they're like 24 or 25, right? So if they're exposed to porn, for example, when they're younger, that destroys them for the rest of their life, right? It makes them look at women differently. So in short, I haven't had that issue yet, Jericho, honestly, with my kids. I treat my kids differently in the sense that, look, I mean, you are going to throw your baby boy up and mess him around and wrestle with him. And you should, by the way. And you are going to treat them slightly differently than the girls. But as far as the world is concerned, I look at my daughters and I tell my sons, I'm like, the girl that you're going to date is someone's sister. Right. And by the way, if you have to, I tell my kids, like, you have to treat your siblings very, very well, because I don't want them ever thinking that bad behavior is okay in their life. Right. Like, I don't want them to, even if it's like silliness, because siblings fight, but I'll say to them, like, you have to treat each other with respect, because else they'll start feeling that that's the norm. And another thing that impacts that is the way a husband treats a wife and a wife treats a husband. And you want your daughters to look at you and say, you're not my dad. Like, no, my dad's my king, right? And you are not treating me the way that my dad treats my mom. And I think that starts eradicating a lot of the problems. Sorry, I know I've waffled on about it.
No, we love it.
But I genuinely don't have those things where I'm like, because my daughters are not going to go to a secular college. They're not. The colleges, to me now, apart from being indoctrination camps, I look at a college as, where is my daughter going to meet her husband? Right? Where is my son going to meet his wife? That's what college is to me. Right? So you have to look and send your kids somewhere, in my opinion, where you're going to meet like-minded individuals with the same values as you, and the families that sent them there have the same mindset. Right? So you're not, I broke the cycle, right? I broke the cycle with my family. And we all know that things can go wrong. But if you can at least set them up as best as you can, because life throws stuff at you all the time. So I don't really have those issues, to be honest. I don't have them yet. My kids are they're very centered in their faith. They're not rushing. Like, when I was younger, I think maybe, and this is like, I'm going to sit on the couch because my dad wasn't around. I wanted to be loved, right? I wanted to replace that love, which is ultimately the love of God, right? God's love for me. But, we seek it in all different places, the wrong places. But I had a little bit of a shortcoming there, even though my mom and my family love me very much. I looked for it in the wrong places. So I'm making sure that my kids don't have that, right? They don't feel like they have a hole in them that needs to be filled by any other person.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say, Matthew,
a little bit.
100% correct. In this fatherless society we have for about 50 years now in the West, of the broken home, the absent or weak father, what that creates. I've done a lot of research in this because my parents got divorced when I was little. I've done a lot of self-improvement study, prayer, a lot of books I recommend to people. And what it does to young men and women, but men specifically, is external validation seeking, the virtue signal. Yeah. That when you wonder about those weak left-wing men, it's because they never had a dad say, Matthew, I believe in you. You're better than that. Get up, get back up. And boys need that so much. Someone to look them in the eye at football practice, or, really hard assignments or whatever. Wipe the blood out of your mouth. Get back up. You can do this. We're Marsdens, damn it. You can do this. I had men like that. My grandfather, my football coaches. I would see my dad in the summer. So thankfully I escaped a lot of that, but I had a lot to work on. And I think it's great that you are working to break that cycle, because you realize you had that too. And I think that is one of the prevailing problems in society, why men are wishy-washy. They won't stand up to woke. They won't stand up and say the truth and do the right thing, because they're like, well, then nobody will like me if I say the truth, So then they go on with the lie. Like, oh, someone will tweet something mean to me. Someone will call me a racist or a homophobe if I speak the truth. Call me whatever the fuck you want. I don't care.
You have to know, who you are. And by the way, I want to say, because Jericho, I do want to say this because you said it earlier on, taking your kids to boxing, 100% the right thing. I think every boy, especially every boy, but both, I've got a bag out the back. I take my kids out. I was a pretty good boxer. And, I'm actually a black belt in Taekwondo as well. Wow. But every single kid should be able to fight, because if you've thrown on the gloves, right, and you get in that ring, you shut your mouth the next time you're in a bar and you see someone and you think of flapping your gums, right? Because for all of us, if you guys have ever done it, I don't know, Jericho, if you've boxed and you get in the room, you can get in that ring with someone who's 140 pounds and they will clean your clock.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And you're like, whoa. And when it's done in a controlled environment, that's good because number one, people don't get hurt so much. And number two, you get to do it before learning it for real when you're downtown Dallas and you think that you're the I am because, you know, you watched a few too many movies like Roadhouse movies and you think you can take on the world, or you played, you know, Mortal Kombat and you think you can do it. It's, by the way, this is a tip for dads, and I'm sure you guys have done it, but you should wrestle with your kids, right? You should always wrestle with your kids, especially your boys, and to show them like that and there comes a point like my 17-year-old and my 24-year-old, they're both probably stronger than me now. Like, you know, they're very, very strong. But it just keeps them in check, right? Like, oh, dad can pin me down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, man?
That's exactly
you know what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah. And my wife, she'll be like, let him win. No, I can't let him win, because when he's 14 and his hormones are kicking in, he's getting peach fuzz on his lip and his voice is changing, he's going to think, I can take this old man. He's always getting up slow and, you know, he works and all this stuff. I can't let that seed germinate at all. I beat my son all the time. We have fun. His two favorite things are playing catch and wrestling. Dad, can we play? Dad, can we wrestle? I love it. I'll pick him up, slam him on the bed, or my wife's like, no, you're going to hurt him. Of course, classic mom.
Which is their role, right? I mean,
that's the yin and yang.
100%.
But you mentioned not having your father and how good of a father you are with your kids. Did you find that it came naturally to you? Was it kind of like, I'm going to give them the things that I wanted? Or did you have a man in your life to kind of help you out, or, you know, to, like you said, break? And that's a big deal. That's no small feat, breaking the cycle, because it's so easy. It's like when you're in your bed and it's nice and warm and it's cold and you don't want to get up and walk. It's cold, I'm warm, it's comfortable. It's easy to continue that because that's what you know. But breaking out of that and doing something different, did you find that difficult, or you were just kind of, hey, I'm a dad, let's do this?
That's a great question. I have a lot of very good friends that are great dads and that have great dads, right? So it's like anything. It's, you know, when as a filmmaker, when I was on set, I'd sit next to Ridley Scott and I'd ask him 1,000 questions, right? And I am a little bit like that, right? I will ask a lot of opinions and then bring them all in and then make my decision. And so I have one particular person, a friend of mine out in California, and she's one of 17, and her dad was just one of the greatest men you've ever met in your life. She's my business partner, actually. And she's a really good barometer. Like, I'll call her and I'll say, hey, you know, what do you think about this? Like, what would your dad have done? Or, you know, her husband's great as well. I said, well, you know, what would Pat do in this situation? And so, you know, you kind of, when you get that feedback, you're either like, oh, that's right. Or you go,
Right.
I disagree, right? And then you go through the process and realize whether you're right or wrong. And then look, I mean, for the longest time, we did it without these books, without, manuals on how to raise your kids. And to a degree, this is the great thing about the big families and being around people with big families. They'll say, oh, well, you know, number 3 was like that for me. Very strong-willed, had to do this. And sometimes they got to go out and, you know, figure it out for themselves. And you're like, okay, I have to do that as a parent. I think if I was to say, Jericho, the one thing that my shortcoming is that I expect my kids sometimes to appreciate that I'm there. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Your frame is yours. Dad wasn't.
Yeah.
To them, you're like, don't you understand? I'm here. And like,
that's
them,
right.
They're like, yeah, you're here, Dad. Yeah, move. I'm trying to watch TV. Get out of the
That's
way.
exactly right. And they're like, yeah, because that's the way it is. And that's a brokenness in me because, like, you know, my son who's a swimmer, I've been to every single swim meet that he did, every football game. I picked my daughter up tonight from ballet. You know, I drive them here, there, and every, you know, I'm there at almost every single thing that they've done in their lives. And a dad should be. And I never had that, right? So that's something that I had to work on myself. So those are the things I think And it's like anything, right? You get to a certain age. I remember getting to like 28 and I'm like, oh, I know, I've got this down, right? I don't know what the ages were for you guys, and then I got to like 30. I'm like, I had no idea what I was talking about.
Yep.
And then it went again at 40. And then, now I'm 51. And that really, you never stop learning. You never stop adjusting. If you have humility, if you don't have humility, then you know everything, right? And that's it.
Right.
And you can't learn anymore. But I'm very well aware of my shortcomings, and I work on them all the time.
Absolutely. I want to ask you both something, because you both have older kids. You both have kids in their 20s. Your 24-year-old son, Gabe, Minnie, and Peter. My wife and I were talking about this the other night. We were talking about, I wonder what our kids are going to say about us, like when they tell stories of when they reflect on their childhood. Mom and Dad, you used to do this, and I remember that. Do your kids come back to you and tell you experiences they had, or things you used to do growing up? Dad would always do this and stuff like that. Because I always wonder, like, how are we doing? How are we doing? What are our kids going to think of us when? And it's not like we don't parent that way. Like, well, I don't want to. I don't care about that. Yeah. But however we do it, how did we do? And you guys have kids old enough to kind of let you know how you did. So have they done that? Or told you
want to go first, Matthew? Because I'm looking for something that I want to show you guys.
Okay. So for me, I think a reflection of it, because they haven't really gone away yet and then come back and said, hey, I remember this. I mean, one of the things I would do is I'd be driving in the car every morning, taking the kids to school, and I would introduce them to a new song every day if I could, right? And there'd always be, classics from the 80s mainly. Like it would be anything from Shaka Khan to Queen. I play a lot of Queen because my son loves singing, and I'm like, you want to hear a voice? Like, this is the voice. Like, listen to this,
right.
and then I play him that, and then like I mix it up, right? Because I was a bit of a soul boy when I grew up. I grew up in an area that was predominantly heavy metal. Like Judas Priest came from directly across the street from where I lived. But I went the other way. Like, I love listening to George Benson and all that. So I would. Wow. Oh yeah.
That's a deep cut right there, George Benson. Yeah,
nice. My jam. That's my jam. So I don't know. I think I was a little bit countercultural from my area because everyone else listened to metal. But so I played that for them, and I remember my son going, "Dad, I just want to listen to Pentatonics. I don't want to listen to this old stuff." And I'm like, okay, but you'll grow up to understand that this is the real deal, right? This is really good music. And now it's all I hear around my house is that music.
That's awesome.
That's all I hear. Honestly, they play it. They, my kids will be in doing the washing up, and they'll put on 80s music. And so I think that is kind of a little reflection of how you don't realize how they pick stuff up. And you might think that they're not really paying attention, but they are. But I will say something, and again, it's something you said earlier on, Jericho, is my wife, who's amazing at this. She takes like a million pictures. Pictures. And if you look at so I don't even have a scrapbook of when I was in the UK, all the front covers I was on in magazines. I don't have them. And she always says to me, my mom and dad made the greatest memories for me, and that's what I'm doing for my kids. And she's amazing at doing that. Right. And that's stuck in my head because she said it. I'm like, she's right. Like, we're creating memories for them, because we don't always feel like doing it, right? You're like, do I really want to take like 8 kids to Legoland? Well, no.
But Jericho, I don't know if you've been to Legoland. It is not for people over the age of, I'll say, 3 or 4. It is so boring, that damn place. Oof. Today's show is brought to you by Legoland, by the way. But Matthew, he's completely right, Jericho. And it's about building those memories. But I will say this. It's like anything you want to do in life to succeed. It's about consistency. You're going to screw up. And we all know this as men. As a man, we have a temper. When I was younger, I didn't control mine very well sometimes. Again, that's a number one psychological of boys experiencing abandonment of the father is rage. There's scientific. I did deep scientific research about this when I was in college and stuff. I wanted to know what was wrong with me. And rage is not anger. Rage is the desire to destroy. It's beyond anger. It's the angriest emotion, rage. It's smash things to pieces. And that is the number one emotional trait of boys abandoned by fathers or missing their fathers is rage. It will come out aggressively or passive aggressively. That's a whole other thing. But it's about being consistent, Jericho. And, you know I yelled at my kids sometimes too angrily, and you screw this up and you hurt their feelings. But if you're consistent and you're mostly getting it right, sometimes you're down. But as long as you're going up, you know, that like that kind of stock market thing or the chart, and it wiggles, but it's going in one direction generally. As long as your direction and your intention is good and you fix your mistakes, they're gonna love it. This is a favorite picture of mine. It's got to be, I'm 45 now. I'm probably 22 years old here, 23. And if you could see right here where I moved the mouse in, that's my son. He's 24 now, 25. My daughter's 27. But here they're like, I don't know, 5 and 7 years old. And right there's a giant R2-D2. We got them. They were Star Wars freaks. And just the joy on the kid's face. This was like Christmas or a birthday or something. Just the joy on both their faces. And it was a piece of crap, this R2. Supposed to be like remote control, and you could talk to it, and it wouldn't do anything we wanted it to do. But they loved it. And we didn't have any money back then. That was like a splurge to get that thing. I think I had to put it on a credit card or something at Christmas. And it isn't about being irresponsible with money. That's not what I'm trying to say. And you don't have to buy things. That's not what I'm trying to say either. But I love the look on my son's face and my daughter's face in that picture. And there's so many moments like that. And, you know, I'm a writer, Jericho, you know, the comics I write and the stuff we're doing. And I can just improv stories. And at night I would make up characters and stories for my kids, and they would just love it. And to this day, I can tell them about Jimmy White. He was this little kid who was an explorer, and he had these friends, and he had to save these princesses. And I would just and I would just make it up. And they'd be laying there in bed at bedtime, and I would talk about Jimmy White, and he had hair that was like this and this and this and this. It's kind of like a Dr. Seuss thing where I would kind of make it like a little bit of sing-songy and funny. And I can tell them Jimmy White today, like 25 years later, and they still know what it is and they love it. So I think it's your time. That's all we have in life. It's the greatest gift that God gave us, is the ability to love other people. You know what I mean? And you love your people with actions, you know, your time, your dedication, all that. And you're gonna screw up. Don't beat yourself up, as long as you know that you're trying to be a good husband and father, and really trying. Not, oh, I'm trying, but like you're really trying day in and day out. You're gonna mess up, and you're gonna because I was talking about, you remember Rocky? You met him at Comic-Con, the big Filipino guy, the army guy. We were talking about being dads and yelling at your kids too hard, like you're having a bad day, and you lose it. And then you're alone later and you feel like a monster. Like, why did I do that? You know, it's like I got a flat tire at lunch, and that's what I was really mad about. And then they did something, they broke the house plant, and you just, and then that's going to happen. And as long as you see it, like Matthew said, be aware of your shortcomings and just overcome it, you will not ruin your children. You won't ruin their psychology.
And you know what, Gabe? I think one of the things that I do all the time, because Jericho, you said about girls, I tell them every day, I go, how are you so beautiful? I don't understand how beautiful you are. And they say, because God made me that way. And I say every single day, I'll tell them how beautiful they are. Because if they don't get that affirmation from their dad, they're going to go to somebody who's going to give them that affirmation, because they're going to get to that point where they're going to need someone to tell them that they're beautiful. And that's another one of these trappings of social media, right? Like the Instagram. I mean, I don't know any guys really that like the look of everyone looks the same right now. They've all got that certain like Kardashian look. And I don't know anyone who actually finds it attractive.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like they ate seafood that they're allergic to. I've never understood that.
I don't get it. So I think that is certainly one thing that I've installed in my daughters. I tell them all the time that they're beautiful and that I love them.
That's really good advice.
I do that with my daughter for sure. I call her hi, beautiful. You know, and this past weekend on Sunday, we went out. We go out on our daddy-daughter date. Went to brunch and stuff. And the best part was talking to her, just walking and talking to her while we're waiting for the food to come, and while we're eating and stuff, and listening. You know, you realize how smart they are, how intelligent they are, and how much they listen. You know,
they pick up, right?
It's prisoners. They're the prisoners and we're the guards. And the prisoners are always watching the guards. Who's on shift? What is this guard like? Because they have nothing but time. So our kids are always watching us. And I think the most profound lessons they get from us aren't where we put them on our knee, come here, son, come here, daughter, and explain it to them. It's just watching. It's like you mentioned, watching the relationship with their mother and father. And it's healthy for them to come around the corner, mom and dad are kissing or hugging. Ew, they're grossed out, but that's planting seeds in the back of their mind that this relationship is supposed to be affectionate. This relationship isn't arguing all the time in front of the kids and stuff.
Oh.
And so I want to ask you, with your large family and the kids in ballet and the swimming and all the things the kids are doing, how do you find time, or do you find it difficult to carve out time for the wife? Because yes, the kids are extremely important. They're the most precious thing to us by far. But I find it, so you get busy, life happens. But I find that I need to, and maybe I need to do a better job of carving out time for just me and the wife.
Yeah, yeah.
Nights.
Again, that is an absolutely brilliant question, because a friend of mine who has 9 kids, Tim Clemente, who's a former FBI agent, great guy, he said to me, my Thursday nights or whenever it is with my wife is set in stone. Whatever I'm doing, I am taking my wife out on a date once a week. And he said, and you have to do that. And I've been really bad at that. But one of the reasons why I've been really bad at it is because, like I'll get back in at like 9 o'clock from dropping one of the girls off at ballet, coming back, going, you're going to basketball, picking the boys up, whatever it is. It gets easier when they get old and they can start driving. But also, one of the things that men need to understand is women, certainly when they have kids, they become slave to the kids, right? Like they just constantly do stuff for the kids. So you have to like go, hey, listen, we are going out. I don't care what you think you've got planned. We're going out on Thursday night. It's booked. That's it. And you have to put your foot down and do it, because my wife, it does so much for the kids. I mean, she's full on all the time. That is her focus. And I have to say, hey, listen, we're going out. We're doing this. Or what we do often if we've got a packed day is I'll say, okay, well, we're going to have a drink here. We're going to have a glass of wine and we're going to sit down and have some time, or we'll invite another couple over and we'll have a little bit of time where we just talk about the day. And it's funny because, if you go for a meal and it's just you and her, you end up talking about a bunch of stuff that you just wouldn't have spoken about in the regular day. And also what I did today, for example, I'm actually really bad. Like, I don't believe in Valentine's Day. I mean, I think it's totally commercial, and I think it's just a Band-Aid, right, that people put on. So one day a year you can be romantic. So today, for example, I picked my daughter off, and I was like, I need to pick a couple of things up from the store. So I went to the store, and I looked down, and right there was those Justin peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
And my wife loves them. So I'm like, I turned around to my daughter and went, I'm getting these for mum. And she went, oh, she loves them, doesn't she? Yes, she does. So I just scanned them through. Just a little thing like that. Like, I'm paying attention. Yeah. Right. Because I mean, it doesn't help that my wife is the world's greatest gift giver. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, I will tell you this. This is just a little segue. Every single birthday and Christmas, I say to my wife, what would you like? And she goes, you should know. Oh. And I'm like, but I don't know. And that's why I'm asking you. Yeah. And then when it comes to me, I go, oh, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, how did you think that up? Like, she got me the other year, she got me like a bartender's kit. Like, it's got everything in it. It's got the corkscrew, it's got the plugs and things for whiskey. There's little silver things you put in instead of having ice. And I'm like, it's just a brilliant question, a brilliant present, right? And I can't think of anything. But men, handbags. I'm just saying.
That's right. And you know what? Not only would your wife enjoy the thoughtfulness of you getting that for her, but your daughter, she just downloaded that. This is what a man's supposed to do. He's supposed to be thoughtful. I'm not supposed to wait till February 14th to do this. And I honestly feel weird on Valentine's Day because I get my wife flowers and stuff like that occasionally all throughout the year. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you feel forced to do something. It's weird. This is something you mentioned, not having your dad there, you feel like, I'm here for your kids. So like, you guys should be, ecstatic about this. At least I'm here. I find myself doing that. I need to do a better job of where, like I mentioned, not taking my wife out or spending alone time with her as much as I should, because I'm like, I was with the kids and we're doing this and we're doing that and the housework and stuff. So that's kind of something, right? But that needs to be separate. That's a whole separate department of spending quality time with your wife, you know, just in going for a walk, going out for ice cream, going out for coffee or something. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but definitely carving out some, you know, husband and wife, some mom and dad time. I need to do that and combat that voice in my head telling me, but I just did 10 things and driving all
But it's
around and being a
discipline.
chauffeur, you know? Yeah.
It's like getting up and working out. It's exactly the same. You don't want to do it, but when you're doing it, you go, "Oh, I feel really good," and then afterwards, it's great.
Right.
It's just having discipline to do it.
I think, the lack of the fatherly culture, again, in the West, the last 50 years of just destroying the father and getting them out of the home, or if they're in the home, making them weak, it makes women miserable. Because what women want from us is for us to lead, lovingly lead, not boss around like an evil tyrant, but they expect us to lead. I mean, even in a funny way, you think like, where do you want to go for dinner? You know, when you ask your wife that, she probably has an idea, but she doesn't want to pick. She wants you to be a man with a plan, be competent. You got the right reservation, or you know her favorite Italian place or whatever. And I'm really good with food because my dad's a gourmet chef, and on my mom's side, they own a Mexican restaurant. So I grew up in a food family. So I am very good at getting my wife to where she wants to eat or bringing her snacks. When you said the Justin thing, I'm like, oh, I did that for my wife this afternoon. I brought her a cake pop from Starbucks and a decaf coffee like she likes.
Yeah, and how much does that cost? You know, a few bucks.
In this economy, no.
Yeah, and well, in Biden's economy and Sloppy Joe's economy,
Right.
But also you're doing yourself a favor, fellas, when you do that, because your wife's going to be happy, and chances are she's going to give you your favorite treat later on. So,
Bam, 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 bam.
you're helping yourself. And marriage, if you have the right person in your life and you pick the right woman and you did things correctly, it doesn't get stale unless you let it. Like, I'm happy to come home. I don't drive around the block one extra time. I don't sit in the driveway letting the car idle before I go in and deal with this shit. I'm happy to go home.
Battle your wife.
Yeah, dude, I miss my wife. Whenever I go away, I'm like, I just want to get back. It's just the way it is. But a lot of people, and you mentioned this, Gabe, about marriage. When you get further on into your marriage, like you couldn't. I think C.S. Lewis talks about this a little bit, about the fact that when you first meet someone, you got butterflies, right? That's all you just keep thinking about them, and you just can't wait to see them. And you couldn't live your life like that, right? Like, that'd be a disaster. No. You couldn't feel butterflies all the time. But what the marriage covenant does is it solidifies the relationship on such a deeper level.
Oh yeah.
And it's like the deeper magic, right? So that's a real deep love. And the deeper love is not the fluffy kind of like butterflies thing. It's a real appreciation. And like anything, it needs to be worked at.
Yeah.
It just does. It's not going to just be there with no cultivation or caring of it. You have to work at it like anything. I mean, it's like saying, okay, well, 20 years ago, I was an Olympic athlete and now I should still have a six pack. It's just,
no,
you got to work at it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because I want to talk about that, because I've been married 28 years this November. Been married a very long time. And I don't know how long you've been married, but the love it's beyond love now. It's like the Bible says, one flesh. We're one person. I couldn't imagine my life without her. And when you first start dating and all that, it is sexual, it's romantic, it's butterflies, it's electricity. And there's still an aspect to that, but now they're like, you didn't know you could love someone this way. It's beyond anything you could comprehend. I can't even put it into words. They really are I hate it because people like Oprah and all them ruin this. They really are like your soulmate,
Yeah.
And because Jericho, you've been married a while, and Matthew, I'm assuming you've been married a while to have all these kids. So you
feel
been married
15 years. And it's like when you first get together, you got grape juice, but years later it turns into a fine wine that you can sit back and enjoy.
Right.
And you've made people, you've created other human beings with this woman. You've built a life, you've built a business, you've built your career together, because we can't concentrate on what we do unless there's peace at home. Like your wife maintains, like when soldiers go off, they can't concentrate on their mission if when they call their wife, there's a bunch of shit going on at home, or even if there is, she shields you from it so you can focus on the mission at hand. So a good woman that's the missing piece. That's the battery pack in your back to motivate you to go out there. Because with your wife's support, you can do anything. If you know home is on lockdown, they're like you mentioned, going on your trips and filming and different things, you can do that knowing the home life is okay. You can come back,
Right.
you know, excited to see everybody, you know, and have that joy all over again. And the kids, Dad, you're back. And that whole thing, it's really the greatest thing out there.
Well, yeah, I would say, remember, you saw my wife in action at Comic-Con, Jericho, this last summer. I was running my booth, autograph sessions, selling comics, selling T-shirts, and she's back there just managing it. Right now, I have this, right? Thousands of books in my house, T-shirts, everything. My wife's a high-level accountant. I think she's something called a controller now. That's a very high level in that business. So she's taking all the data, everyone's name and address and phone number and parts, and making me all these spreadsheets so I could just put it into stamps.com and print postage and get it. If I was doing this by myself, it'd take me like 3 months to just do one order at a time. She's like, okay, these are all the people that ordered this cover. These are all the people that ordered this cover plus this cover. These are all the people that ordered one shirt and two shirts. And she has all this data like Iron Man, parsing all his data. And yeah, a good woman being your first mate or whatever. There's really nothing like it. And families are just unstoppable. You know, I'll say one other thing about I got married very young. I was 18 and she was 20. Our daughter was born 5 months after we were married. So there's a clue for you guys out there.
Yeah.
Hey, come on. I was a passionate young man. But a lot of people, I say they don't want to get married. They're afraid of it, divorces and that. And those are all valid concerns. But one thing I keep hearing that I've never thought was true is, well, they can't get married because they're broke. They're poor and they don't want to have kids when they don't have any money. I worked at Toys R Us and my wife worked at Coco's, which is like Denny's, when we got married. I made $8 an hour. Then I was working in a warehouse for like $10, and we built something. And the fact that we were poor, and we kept working, and we kept praying and raising these kids, and we did better and better. She's from the Indian Reservation. She's the first person in her family to go to a university and graduate. She's a high-level accountant now. I've done art on a world-class level, but I worked at Toys R Us when we got married. And the fact that we suffered so much, and like Starship said, we built this thing together. The fact that it's solidified into like granite and diamond, and like what we have now is like unbreakable. So I would tell people that are out there, they're young and they're too poor to get married. I think it's okay to eat ramen when you're 20. It's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay to build it together, man.
By the way, it's actually one of the biggest indicators of wealth growth is getting married young, actually.
Really?
Is getting it. Yeah, it is. And I'll say something else, and this is something that has been kind of lost over the years, and it's the reason why I have a bunch of kids. I'm going to tell you the philosophy behind it, right? And hopefully, maybe some people will agree with it, some people will not agree with it, but I can tell you, and I think that there's never been a dad that said, I wish I had less kids. Not a decent person, right? But so think about this. You get married and it's meant to be, right, the first time that you consummate the marriage, right? That's the moment when you have sex, is that you are entering into the covenant, which is different to a contract, right? There's a covenant and there's a contract. So the marriage is a covenant. And so every single time, think about this, every single time you sleep with your wife, you are saying to her, and you're not using birth control, you are saying, I might have a kid with you. And I'm down with that, right? And the wife is saying to you, you know what? I might have a kid and my body might be ravaged for 9 months. And then, for another year after that, breastfeeding. And, it's going to pull me in all these different in these different directions. And it just makes the act deeper, right? Like it makes it a deeper, psychological, like on every different level, it makes it more important, right? Because you're recommitting. So now, again, this might be different for the individuals on this particular podcast, but you think about now the amount of kids that go out and they just have sex and it's just for the sex. Like they've divorced that from procreation, right? Which is what it's all about, right? So every single time you do that, you're recommitting, right? It can't not make you in a deeper relationship with your wife, right? Because you keep doing it. Now, on the other hand, on the other side of things, on the other hand, if you are saying, think about this: if a guy goes, "All right, I'm ready to go," and the wife goes, "No, I'm on the pill. I want to go on the pill, or I want to do this, or I don't want to get pregnant." There's something in the psyche that goes, "Why? Why?" So I'm just saying, just have a think about that, right? Or the other way around. A woman's like, "I want to have a baby. And the guy goes, "No." Then you got to go, "Why? Like, why is that?" And then that starts a conversation. But if you're in a committed relationship and you're moving forward, and every single time you have sex, you're saying, "Okay, well, listen, there might be a baby coming out of this," and you're like, "All right, it doesn't matter because we're in it together." And it's interesting that every single Christian denomination had the same teachings on birth control up until the 1940s. Did you know that?
Really? Yeah, no.
Everyone, no contraception.
That's why you have those Irish families with 15 siblings, and
No, it is. I mean, in the Mexican families, and actually black families, African Americans had massive families, and the dad was the central part of it, right? Like, was the actual backbone of it. I mean, actually, what they've done to one of the worst things that this country's done is destabilize the African American family, which was, super, super strong, was the bedrock of the community, and the dad was the absolute linchpin of that, and they just decimated that, right?
I don't know. You're not from here, but you might know. Do you know what they did about that with like the welfare programs and the entitlement?
Yeah, no, I mean,
I didn't know that till I was in college. My wife learned it in a sociology class, and when she told it to me, and I'll tell the audience here an abbreviated version, I didn't believe her because it's so evil. They told the black families that were poor and coming up, they'd just gotten the civil rights and all that. Hey, if you don't have a dad, we'll give you more welfare, more housing. They incentivize getting the black father out of the house. Before this shit, the black families had lower divorce rates.
Yeah, it was better. It was people don't like saying it, but the statistics say it was actually better for them as a community. It was way better. They had a way stronger community. It was the envy of a lot of the communities around the country, and they specifically targeted it and broke that up
on purpose.
And it was a disaster.
And my theory is it was the Democrats like Lyndon B. Johnson, all that, because they saw the blacks were going to be a Republican voting bloc, family oriented, religious. That's Republican.
Yeah,
and they said we don't need 13% of the population voting Republican reliably. So terrible.
Had abortion not worked so well, we wouldn't be 13% of the population. We'd be much more. But with 20 million plus dead black children since Roe v. Wade, that doesn't happen. And I'll say something super controversial that people don't like to hear, but it's the truth. The civil rights movement was a mistake. The civil rights movement was the beginning of the black family being decimated, because it also destroyed the community, because now you're forcing white people who own businesses to allow people in there that maybe some of them didn't want, instead of allowing the free market to decide, hey, that's an old antiquated way of looking at things. We need to integrate organically, but you are forcing people. So black folks also said, well, now I can take my black dollars and go spend it with white people. So what happened to the black businesses, the bus drivers, the doctor's offices, and everything you need to run a community? All those dollars went elsewhere. And so the black businesses died. You have poor neighborhoods. And then you have Lyndon B. Johnson. After he signed the civil rights movement, he also signed welfare. That's when welfare started, and destabilizing the black family. They would literally send people who represent the welfare office to check and make sure that the father wasn't there. They would send somebody to your door, knock on the door to make sure the dad wasn't there. And like
they did that in the UK as well. They did that in the UK. It was incentivized without a shadow of a doubt.
It's horrible. And now today you have 70+% of black children are born to single parent homes. And the correlation between inmates, poor people, uneducated people, dangerous people, there's a direct connection to
not having that father
in the home.
And nobody's doing anything about it. That to me is the frustration. And that was the frustration with Black Lives Matter, is like, kids are still, these directionless kids at 17, 16, 15 years old in Chicago still killing each other.
If
Nobody
they make
cares.
If they make it to that age.
Yeah, nobody cares, though, right, Jericho? No,
Yeah.
nobody cares. Like right now, I'll guarantee you, there's been a bunch of shootings tonight, and nobody cares because it's not politically expedient to talk about it, and that to me is disgusting. It is appalling,
disgusting, because it's an inversion of the truth. Because if you say too many black young men are killing each other, you're racist for saying it's like, no, I care about them. I don't want them to get shot. That boy is a son, just like my son that I love. I don't want my son shot. I don't want this other guy in Chicago shot. No. And you bring it up and you're a bigot. Like, how? And how? This is a terrible thing. There was a joke on the Office TV show, Michael Scott. He was saying, it was telling someone bad news, and he was trying to say, well, you don't tell people bad news. He's like, well, you wouldn't tell a patient they had cancer. You don't want to upset them. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to talk about the problem, the gun violence in Chicago. You don't want to upset people. It's like, I want it to stop. It's terrible.
And your father teaches you to check your emotions. Your father teaches you, yes, you have the ability to fly off the handle and punch that guy or whatever, but should you do that? Is that the right thing to do? He teaches you a respect for life. And if you don't have that, and you have these boys raised by what I call the NIMs, grandmama NIM, mama NIM, sister NIM, if they're raised by them, you have, because what happens if you put a piece of meat in a bag, in a container with seasoning? When you cook it, it's going to taste like that seasoning. So if you submerge these boys in estrogen, they're going to have the mindset and the emotions of a woman, but the physical ability of a man. So a woman, she can throw a drink in your face and you're not going to punch her, right? Because she's a woman. But when you think like that, when the slightest thing sets you off and you do something to somebody that's extreme, because you have that violence of a man inside of you. That's why you have people being killed for shoes and being killed for cars, or killed because you look at me a certain way. That's insane. I'm not going to shoot somebody because they stepped on my foot. I'm just not going to do that. But if you have no respect for life, you've been to 12 funerals by the time you're 12, and you've seen it. You see the gunshots. You spin. Chris Rock had a joke about kids in the hood living on the floor because of the gunshots. You play on the floor, you watch TV on the floor because bullets are flying through the window. You become desensitized to that. So it's nothing to see somebody getting their head stomped in on the way to school. It's nothing to see a dead body on the way to school. It's nothing to be in class and have to keep your jacket and your mittens on because there's no heat in the classroom. But that goes back to the people. There's no way in hell that I'm going to send my kid to a school where there's no heat and it's Baltimore in the wintertime. I'm not going to stand for that. I'm not going to stand for them going to a gladiator school where there's fights all the time. As a parent, I'm either going to remove them or I'm going to demand better. But I think I liken it to a crock pot. The left and Lyndon B. Johnson and people of his ilk, Martin Luther King, who was a fraud, they put all the ingredients inside of the crock pot and they set it. You set it and forget it. Now it takes care of itself. Now you have black people are 12% of the population. So I'd say the women of childbearing age are 3 or 4 maybe percent of the population, but they account for 1/3 of the abortions in this country. How the hell is that? There's children in New York who have a better chance of being aborted than born with this much of the population. So it's already, the mindset is there. We're doing it ourselves. We're killing enough black people to make the Klan blush. The Klan could never put up these kind of numbers on black people. Don't worry, we'll kill 7,000 of us every single year. It's sick, man. And then last week you have Kamala Harris going to a Planned Parenthood in Minnesota, praising it, saying that it's reproductive care and it's health care. I don't see care where somebody dies.
I hate what. Look, I mean, here's the problem with the left. Is the left? Well, there's a lot of problems with the left, but one of the things the left does is they're very good with language, right? They use language very well, like pro-life and pro-choice.
Right.
How can you be anti-choice? Like, you're already going to be losing that argument, right? It should be pro-abortion or anti-abortion. Like, that's it. I mean, that's what it is. But they kind of, like you said, it's reproductive health. What does that mean, right? Why don't we discuss the fact that the Planned Parenthoods are located, actually, it was initially in African-American communities. Now, actually, dude, it's moved on. They're hitting the Hispanic neighborhoods, right? You very rarely find a Planned Parenthood in a white neighborhood, right? You just don't. It's not there. They are specific and they're targeting those communities. And like you said, Jericho, I interviewed once for a documentary that never came out, Alveda King, and she spoke about this. She spoke about the attacks on the African American community, and I said, listen, you guys are all like, we're saying that Planned Parenthood should be shut down. Why? Because there'd be 50 million more blacks in the country right now. 50 million. We're the ones that's saying that we don't want that happening, as in we don't want them killed. We'd rather have more African American. I don't even like saying African Americans. I don't like that hyphenating thing.
You know?
They're just Americans to me. Like, that's why I love what Raymond Simone said when she's like, "I'm an American."
Yeah, but Black Lives Matter.
Yeah,
Black Lives Matter, right?
So no, but like you said, imagine how different things would be if there were 50 million more blacks in the country.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's how bad it is. You mentioned the shitty music that they have now. There's I only call her a rapper because that's how they categorize her, but her name's Sexy Red, and there's another one named Suki Hana. The two of the most filthiest hood rats this planet has ever seen. They made a rap video in the parking lot of a Planned Parenthood. So tell me that mental slavery hasn't taken hold and rotted their brains. You're celebrating this. You cry out of one side of your mouth. You're crying, but there's no representation. We need to see more black people here, more black people there. Well, in order for that to happen, there has to be more black people.
Right.
And white people this,
aborted.
and white people that, because white people are 65% of the population. Of course, you're going to see more of them because there are more of them. But if you're keeping your numbers down, whether you snuff the kid out in the womb or snuff him out when he's walking to school, you're never going to get those numbers. You're never going to get that representation. And then every 4 years, what's the T-bone steak that they dangle in front of black folks? Reparations. That shit is never going to happen. Never. It's too late. It's too late. We have to forgive and forget. You know, we should have got the 40 acres and a mule 150 years ago. We didn't. You got me. But let's move on. Being in America is a reparation. I don't want to be
that's
black.
Great. That is a great line.
I don't want to be black anywhere else. I didn't want to go back to Africa. Screw all that.
Hey, dude, let me
here.
Let me tell you something. And I've got to be careful how I say this. So
you could use the hard R with Jericho. He's cool,
that's fine.
No. I mean, it's. I'm just saying that I was dating a girl and I went to North Africa with her. You don't want to be black in North Africa. Let me tell you, they are not nice. I'm just saying. I mean, I saw it firsthand.
What country?
Right?
My dad is from Libya. My dad's from Tripoli.
Tunisia.
Tunisia next door.
I've been to Morocco. I've been to South Africa. I've been to East Africa. I've seen it. And who do you think is throwing you into a paddy wagon? I want a phone call. Phone call? They might not ever see you again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm fine right here. I wish more. And I think, no, I can't say that. There was a time where I was more optimistic, and I believe that there were more good folks than good black folks than the ones you hear pushing the BLM bullshit and all that stuff. But I don't think that anymore. I think that most of the black population believes that crap. They believe that they're victims. They believe that they're oppressed. They believe that they're owed something, and they're just not. As long as people are literally risking life and limb to get here, Cubans floating here on a milk jug trying to get here, we are here. We're born here. We have all the advantages. We know the language, the culture. We're already here. It's just, I think it's a very sad thing that, number one, it was started, but number two, that we took it and ran with it like that.
I think there's going to be, sorry, can I just say this, Gabe? I think there's going to be a pendulum swing because, for me, like, I think affirmative action is the most racist thing ever. Like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're black, so that means that you are not smart enough to like do your own thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is absurd to me. And I got called, because I love it when they call me like racist. I'm like, I don't give a shit, because it doesn't mean anything anymore. I know what I am, right? Like, I know what I am. And my 24-year-old son is mixed race, right? So and I never normally bring that up because that's irrelevant, really. But when you look at the way that they're pushing the affirmative action in places like Harvard, right? So I came out and said about that woman at Harvard, I was like, this is absurd. Because everyone's like, oh, it's because she's black. They're going after because I said, no, she's because she cheated. And people are like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, there are black people out there that work really hard, that she might have taken that job from. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about the woman? And this is, these things you hear it over and over and over again about a guy or a woman that have worked 3 jobs to pay their way through college, and they've kind of worked their way up the system, right? And they've fought blood, sweat, and tears, and they've done it. And then you've got this woman who just lied, right? Mm-hmm. Allegedly. I mean, or, that's what they said. She was plagiarism. She plagiarized a bunch of stuff, allegedly, right? That's a problem, right? Because then guess what? Everyone else is going to be looked at like that, right? Academic integrity is important. It's got nothing to do with the color of a skin. It's got to do with the fact that, I'll be like massive. If I was an Englishman, right? No, because I'm not, I'm American anymore, but, born in England. If someone if Tim Cook, who's the chief of Apple, you find out something about him, I'll be like, oh, that's really embarrassing, right? It means he took the job from somebody that he shouldn't have. I mean, not that he has, clearly he hasn't. He got that by merit. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that can be robbing another black person from that job who legitimately earned it. Right? I mean, that's what I don't understand. Like, everyone has these discussions and they're not living in the real world. And so I think that there's because look, everyone at the end of the day, really, like, if you get stuff given, it's empty at the end of the day. You don't appreciate it. And really, you're like, oh, I'm a fraud. You might enjoy it for a little bit, but then really you're like, oh, did I really work for that? Did I really do what I needed to do? And that kind of like, well, I deserved it because of blah, blah, blah. There's several, even like Malcolm X, right? Remember Malcolm X? And he goes to, he went to Saudi Arabia, and then he saw like white people. He saw this, and he was like, hang on a minute, what is going on? And it changed his perspective. So I actually think that there's a swing. I do. I actually do feel optimistic because I see a lot of people and a lot of liberals, and I'd rather separate things down the lines of, are you a liberal or are you a conservative, rather than are you black or are you white, right? Because the immutable characteristics are just, I always say this is the least most important thing about you, right? It just doesn't matter. I mean, like having a rich background does, right? And that's interesting, but the color of your skin doesn't matter. And so I think that there is a swing coming back, because even Gen and Z people who are like, well, we deserve this, and now they're going, well, hang on a minute, this is wrong. So I do have faith, actually. I do think that things are going to move back, because you're looking at the women that, like those women you were talking about, those rappers, what an empty life that is. And, as they get older, they end up going, oh, well, I don't have kids, or, I wish I would have taken things the other way. You're seeing a couple of very high profile converts to Christianity, right? Very high profile. And they're like, well, we've actually found something now. So I'm more optimistic about that. I think
I hope you're right.
I hope so too, because I'm not.
I hope you're right, because there's some people out here who forget drinking the Kool-Aid. They've injected the Kool-Aid. They took it intravenously. It's insane, and it's the bigotry of low expectations. Come here, hey, white people, Asians, stay back, shh, quiet. Come here, little black person. Here, give him a stool. Let him get over there. I call black folks the Fabergé eggs of ethnicities. You got to put on your gloves. Shh, quiet. Lower the lights. Don't raise your voice. It's not their fault. Slavery. Shh, even though everybody was a slave. Slavery was all around the world. Everybody did it. But shh, quiet. This group's different. And what happens if you have 3 kids and you give one of them a lollipop? The other 2 are going to get pissed at that kid because why are you giving it to them and not me? That creates animosity. Right. And the people who get put in these positions who are unqualified, and I want to say it's between 70 and 80% of kids who get into college due to affirmative action don't last long, because they're not there because of their merit. They're there because of, like you said, an immutable characteristic that you can't control. You are what you are. You can't go back and, I want these parents. You
And
are
you're
what
setting
you
them
are.
up for failure, right? And people go, well,
Exactly.
why did they fail? I'm like, well, they didn't have the grades in the first place. Like, if you actually concentrated on what mattered, like you say, it starts with the family unit. Like, you unify the family, make the dad a person that's involved in their life. I mean, these are very, very deep seated things that, and look, they want it for everyone. I was a victim of it. My dad wasn't in my life at all. And I kind of, I beat the system. Right, I kind of broke the cycle, and people can do that. They can do that, but look, we're seeing it in Hollywood as well. They're elevating people a lot quicker, and it's normally like liberal women that are doing it. It's a bloody nightmare. They're the one. Like, listen, dude, I have absolutely no sympathy. Right, I don't look at anyone of any other color and think that they're less than me or need a hand. I just don't. I look at an individual and say that, like, an individual might need a hand, as I have, as we all have at some point. You might call someone up and go, "Hey, listen, I need your advice." The experiences of the person is what matters, right?
Right.
And so I do think, as time goes by, and because we've gone so far, that the pendulum's going to start swinging back, and it takes people like us to talk about these things. Like, we shouldn't be afraid of it. Like you're saying, like, people are like talking hushed tones about it. You shouldn't. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Well, Matthew, I don't know if you know, but I was global news for about better part of a week, about 2 years ago. I left DC Comics. It was a media firestorm. I got interviewed all over. I've been on the news ever since, going on Fox News and Newsmax and Real American Voice. But it was like literally like in the Spanish news, and they were calling me from England, and we want to interview because I humiliated DC Comics over their stupid woke Superman, underage bisexual son, and he doesn't have an American slogan anymore. And I get private messages still from people who work at DC Comics, all that, like, dude, you did the right thing. Like, I got a mortgage. I can't say nothing, but I think it's bullshit too, what they're doing to all these characters. And I don't say nothing. I would never harm those guys. They're grown men. They want to stay working there, stay. But I get so tired of it. And you're saying the pendulum's going to swing, and I want to believe you, but how, without a generation of fathers making that pendulum swing? Because the racism thing, I'm a Mexican and I'm a Libyan. It's a lot of, like, I am ripe for liberals brainwashing me how much America and Matthew Marsden, the white man, hates you because you're Mexican and Libyan. I remember my grandfather, Christian, World War II veteran, Mexican guy. I was on his lap in the kitchen, and the TV was on, and there was something racist on the TV. I don't know if it was a joke making fun of white people or something on the news. And I kind of said something to him about it, like, what is white? What does that mean? I was like 5 or 6. And he told me, like, white people, us, this, that. He said, but he's all, they say there's racist white people. I will never forget my grandpa. We called him Pampy, is what we called him, not grandpa. Pampy told me, yes, there are racist white people. He said, but there are racist every kind of people. And he told me, and we wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for the good white people that helped me. Because when my grandpa got back from World War II, he was a cowboy and a ranch hand and stuff like that. And then he ended up opening a restaurant that was very successful later. But when he wanted to get the loans and all that to do this restaurant, a white lady, he worked on her ranch as a cowboy and all that, she went to the bank. And she loved my grandpa because he worked so hard for her. And she said, you give Tim Duran anything he wants, I'm signing for it. And he told me that, like, they're not all racist, but it was right there on the TV trying to tell me that. And he disabused me of that notion. So that's that thing where culture is passed down from that father being the leader. The mothers, they have their role, just as important, but different. But I can still remember that moment to this day. And I was only 5 or 6, and I still remember it. He said, we wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for the white people that helped.
Here's, and I don't know if this is, because of my lived experience, right? So let me give you a little bit of a scenario, right? So my grandfather came up, was Irish Catholic. If you guys have watched any movies, especially Jim Sheridan movies about the 70s and the Irish, it's not really that good between the British and the Irish, right?
Nope.
Little friction.
It was bad, right? So it's very famous that they would have those signs outside bars for jobs like no blacks, no Irish. Right? I don't know if you've seen those. No blacks, no Irish.
Yeah,
right?
Same here in America.
They're white.
It's
right?
crazy.
So my granddad, when he came over, he moved to England, and he got all the time, no surrender to the IRA, no surrender, like, oh, the IRA, the Irish Catholics. And I don't know if you noticed, I think there's a show, I think the joke over here is like an American, a Canadian, and a Mexican or something like that, right? Walking to a bar. I don't know if, do they have that here?
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
yeah.
stuff like that.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So in England,
We have
it's
some bangers.
it's an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Scotsman. And the Irishman is always dumb. Like the Irishman is always the stupid person, right? So I remember growing up, and there'd be like an Englishman, Irishman, and a Scotsman walk into a bar. You know, the Scotsman's always tight with his money, the Englishman's always the smart one, and the Irishman's always the dumb one. And I turned around to my grandfather and I said, why do they always say that? Like that you're dumb, right? Because he was so my dad wasn't around and my grandfather lived in the same street. So I'd see him every day. So really I was raised by an Irishman, right? So I'm kind of first generation Irish, really. And he goes, son, they say it because we can take it.
I like that.
That was it. He did not go, well, the troubles, or, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And so I sit there and I think
Jeez,
about,
come in, don't knock so hard.
Oh, he's saying good
you got our bedtime now. Oh my
We
gosh.
can hear you, Jericho. Just so you know your
Hey.
mic's on.
Okay.
Hi there.
I'm
Hi there,
Matthew. Hi.
Dad.
He said hi.
All right, we heard him.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, dude.
So you know what I'm saying? So it was, I mean, how'd you look at that, right? So I'd be going, you know, to the soccer games and they'd be singing No Surrender to the IRA. The IRA bombed a bunch of pubs in Birmingham in the 70s. It was really, really nasty for Irish people from the Southern Ireland. It was really bad for them. I mean, they'd hear the accent, they'd get abused, they'd get spat at and all that. So they got that, but they're white. So where does that fit into this narrative? You know what I'm saying? Like, where does that fit? Because does it mean that the prejudice that he got is less because he was white?
No.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that if no, right? So these things are very, very, very complicated, and people look. We know it's the left. The left wants to balkanize everyone so they can control them, so that they can pit them against each other. And you asked Gabe, you said, what do we have to do? We just don't have to accept their narrative. And when they call that you're a racist, you go, bleep you. I'm not, and I know I'm not. You know what I mean? That's what we've got to do. Because I mean, look at what we've got in here. We've got a Mexican, what was it, Libyan?
Libya.
By the way, Libya is right across from Malta, by the way.
Right? Oh, I have an uncle that has a place in Malta. Never met him, never been there, but
and my wife can understand Arabic.
okay.
So you know, because a lot of Libyans go over, and
Sure.
so and there's we've got a black guy, we've got me, Irish, English. You know, my kids are Maltese.
Jericho's half Chinese, actually. You didn't know that, but he's actually half Chinese.
The upper half, the lower half is black. Sort of.
But you know, it's all bullshit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah, and you know, something I like that you do, Matt, is you grew up without your father, so it's very easy for you to turn around and play victim. And this is what a lot of celebrities don't do, mostly black celebrities who play into this victimhood bullshit. I always ask people, you know, if I made a comment on a post or something like that. So these rich, famous, powerful black people are crying about racism. How did you escape it? You're crying about oppression. How did you escape it? So instead of crying victim, why don't you turn around and tell people you need to work hard? That's how I got here. Some of them, maybe they did some weird shit on a casting couch, but usually you got to work hard. So instead of crying victim and perpetuating this bullshit, why don't you tell people, find something you're passionate about and work hard? Because hard work wins. That's what America was built on. Hard work, people coming here and working hard, coming over through Ellis Island or through Seattle with nothing, literally nothing, not 2 coins to rub together. And in a generation, they have a restaurant, they have a business, they have a home,
Right.
They go to college. Hard work. That's what they should be telling people instead of this victimhood bullshit. And speaking of Irish people were slaves too. in modern,
That's
quote unquote
racist
modern
to
America.
bring that up. That's racist to mention that.
They sent them down to the Caribbean to work in the sugarcane fields. So you're taking a white dude from Europe and sending him to the Caribbean
Imagine
to
the
work in the
sunburns these
sugar.
guys had.
That is rough
Man,
on the skin there. That's a
come
bunch of red
on, man.
people.
And
Yeah.
they of course slavery, slavery, but
I
they
gotta
don't
stay
tell
out
the
of the
whole.
slavery talk because Irish were slaves, black were slaves, Libyans were slave traders.
Yeah, but I'm sure they were slaves too.
I
If
know.
you were too
I'm
weak,
joking.
if you were too weak to fight off the enemy forces,
Yep.
you were going to be a slave. But they
Yeah.
don't tell you the whole story. They tell you that black people were sharecroppers and cotton pickers. That's it. No, black people worked in all facets of society: blacksmithing, gunsmithing, farming, all doctors' offices, on the docks, building boats, working. They did everything. But if you come from greatness, that's what they'll expect from you. But if they tell you all you were was a cotton picker with a white man's boot on your neck, well, then nothing's expected of you. That's why you have the bigotry of low expectation, where you could treat black folks like children, literally, like children.
That's a brilliant thing, because when you comment, because you're saying that it is the bigotry of low expectations. It's saying that's what you were, and that's what you'll always ever be. That's what you will only ever be, and it's clearly untrue. And look, I mean, I can't really speak to this because I grew up in the UK, and I wasn't kind of familiar with the dynamics over here for a long time. I will say that certainly things have got worse since Obama got in. I saw things just start getting very, very bad. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Like, this is the first black president, right? And he's in there. Why are things getting worse as far as race is concerned? But even if you look back at slavery, and this is me as an observer, which was obviously a horrendous time, it got rectified.
Right.
It was a sin and a scar on the nation, but it got fixed. So,
Well,
I mean, within a period of time, right? I mean, it did. People died for it.
Christian men died, by the way. A ton of white northern Christian men died to help end that.
600,000 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Jericho and Gabe. The race thing, I just hate it so much. It to me is one of the most horrendous things that we keep doing and keep engaging in, and thinking that is what should separate us. It is blatantly ridiculous. And the more, in answer to your question, if more conversations go on like this and more people are standing up and going, I don't care, it doesn't matter, these things don't define who I am, then it ends. It just ends, because it's only because it's making people money. That's what it is at the end of the day. It's making, you'd think that what happened with BLM, right, with that woman going and buying these like giant houses, the people had clue up to it. And by the way, a bunch of people have, because I don't know if you saw there's a video, there's a bunch of dudes in the hood, right? And they're like, who you voting for? And they're like, Trump, because they know, like, they had a little glimpse of it, right? They had a glimpse of getting out of that situation, and they're figuring it out now. And I remember when Stephen A. Smith, right, he was he got into a lot of trouble, which he shouldn't have. He said, how's it working out for you? Like, you should at least think about voting for the other side. Right? You should at least think about changing it, right? If things are really bad over here and they haven't changed, maybe you should try, instead of voting like 80% one way, maybe you should think about trying the other guys.
95.
Is it 95?
95 to 96%.
Wait, Jericho, even the men?
Yes.
Wow.
95. It has to be for the percentage to be that high, and have gotten absolutely nothing for it. And not that you should put too much into that politician basket. You shouldn't depend on them, but they do have a role in our lives, and to keep voting. And people just, they were the party. They voted against everything progressive for black people in this country, to end slavery, civil rights movement, the Voting Act, all that stuff. Democrats voted against. The first black politicians were Republican. Back when slavery was going on, it was hot in here for black folks. They were Republicans.
You know how the Republican Party was founded? It was literally founded on the issue of slavery in Wisconsin. A slave had escaped the South. He made it up there, and I think they were trying to apprehend him, or they did again, or whatever. I think he won his freedom. but the group of white people got together and founded that party to fight politically against slavery. It's literally was founded to fight against slavery, the Republican Party.
And there was a guy in South Carolina in the late 1700s in America. This was supposed to be the worst time for Black folks. And my mom traced our lineage on her side of the family. My family acquired their freedom in 1812. But anyway, in the late 1700s in South Carolina, a Black man went to court and won his slaves back. In the late 1700s.
Wow.
There were Black slave owners. There were Indian slave owners. They make it sound like every white person was boss hog and every Black person was just a lowly little sharecropper. That wasn't true. Black folks, one of the most harsh, brutal slave owners was a Black guy. White slave owners would go to him to learn how to keep their slaves in line. If it was so bad, then why would they allow him to be a slave owner? Why would they allow him to have property? Why would they allow him to go to court and get his slaves back if it was so bad for us at every single moment in America?
Well, you know, a part of this is to do with the fact that people feel like they can coach the sin out of somebody, right? Like that kind of malice in their heart. They think that they can legislate it out. Mm-hmm. And you just can't, right? You can't do that. There's always going to be racism. It's never going to go away. It's the same thing, like, you know, you see it with kids, right? The kids will, you go to school and you'll hear like the tall one got teased. The guy with a big nose got teased. The guy with the weird, like redheads got teased. It's in our DNA to, we have sin, right? We're prone to sin. And we know that, right? Get the guys on this call here or on this video. We all know that. And that's not a Black or a white thing. That's a human problem. And you can't legislate that out of a human being, right? You have to do a change of heart. You have to recognize, and I think that we recognize that that's always going to be around in some way, shape, or form. There's always going to be, you know, it's like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. It's always going to happen. And, you know, even if you look, not to go too deep religiously, but, you know, look into scripture, that it's over and over and over and over again in the Bible. It says this, you know, it says that you know, this is the way that the human heart goes. It tends to go that way. So we have to kind of like moderate it, right? We have to pull it back. We have to be our brother's keeper. We have to engage each other, but understand that we have a fallen nature and that we're going to tend towards those things. And yes, they're evil. They're always going to happen. But you know, I feel that sometimes people on the left, certainly people that can be godless, don't understand this, and they think that if we just put the rules in place, that's going to stop people from doing it, right? No. And it's not. It's just not.
There's tons of rules.
Jericho. In fact, to your point, what is it doing? It's pissing people off and it's riling people up, because at the end of the day, people want to be treated fairly. That's all they want, right? They want to be treated fairly and justly. And when you have one group of people that is being treated differently to the other, it's gonna get at least a kind of negative reaction.
Yeah,
at least.
Well, yeah, like the Black Lives Matter thing. The people that support that, they pretend, I think, why that's an offensive statement to just say those lives matter, so the other ones don't. Like, what are you talking about? That's so
it's childish.
It's right. It's like, well, those are the lives that matter the most right now, or in trouble. Like, no, there's problems in every community. There's poor Mexicans, there's poor Chinese, everyone needs some help. Everyone, you know, like Paul Chato, friend, you know Paul, right, Matthew? You've been on shows with him and Jericho. We had him on. He said something blew my mind that I didn't know, because he's a little older, and he said communism never took in America, because the factory workers after World War II, it paid well. They had unions, they had benefits, they had pensions. So you couldn't turn blue collar people against the owners. You know, you're assembling Ford trucks. You're not going to turn against Henry Ford. You're happy to work here. They pay well. I get to retire in my 50s, blah, blah, blah. So communism, better dead than red. Like, this country hated communists. And then Paul pointed out to me in Jericho when he was on the show like 2-3 weeks ago. So they changed it to identity politics. They tried it with class, with the workers and the employers. It didn't work because we had such a good middle class economy. So they did it with the gay and the Black and the white and the religious and the atheist and the man and the woman. And that works. And they do it through culture. They do it through music. They do it through movies. And that's that thing that you're talking about all the time, Matthew. We need messages in movies and all that tell the opposite story, that my grandpa told me that no, white people are not all racist. It's not like that. You know, we need those movies that do that with really skilled actors, really great directors, really great comic book artists, really great singers and dancers. We need that because that's where people are getting this shit downloaded into their brain over and over and over.
And you know, and to that point, one of the things that really gets me is, you know, you see the pushback in the superhero comic book community where you got the fans and they're like, excuse me, the fans are like, no, why are you changing this character? Why are you making this white character black? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's not saying that the person, you're objecting because there's a black person in the role. You're not saying that, right? Nobody is saying that. If you want to do a role like that, write a character for that person.
That's racist.
Right?
You can't say that. That's racist.
That was
sorry. I've been cancelled already. But you know what I'm saying? Like everybody loved Black Panther, right? The comic book character. No one was like, oh, you know, it's a black guy in it. You're like, no, it's a great. I loved Black Panther growing up. Actually, I love the comic book.
Who didn't love Lando? Lando was so suave, you know.
Dude,
telling Princess Leia, truly, you belong here among the clouds with us. You know, like damn, Lando, jeez.
But all those characters, like Apollo Creed, whatever, that were played by black guys, they were really well written, right? And it's lazy Hollywood, and that's all we're calling him out on. It's lazy. It's lazy to go, oh, let's just in the same way. Let's make this character gay. Why? That's you want to write a gay character, write a gay character, right? Go do it. Knock yourself out. But don't bastardize the history of this particular character because you've got a legion of fans that followed them for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I'm saying? Instead, they're going, oh, well, you know, it's because you're sexist and you hate gays. No, that's not what it is. Or, you know, we don't, you know, like for me, I'm like, you know, I'll give a classic example, right? A black James Bond. And people would say, well, you know, now it's time for a black James Bond. I'm like, do you understand why James Bond worked, right? And all the flaws that he had and why when that book was written, he could go all around the world, right? He could go around the world. And unfortunately, as we've said before, there are some places that are actually still racist, right? And if a black guy goes into a certain place, he's going to get looked at differently than a white guy. It's just a fact. I hate to tell you that's, you just said it, right? You got to, here's the funny thing that a lot of people don't realize. Under apartheid in Africa, in South Africa, if you were a black American, you were classed as a white person.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because people, Africans in South Africa were not allowed to go into certain doors. It was horrible, right? But when you went there, you were an American, and therefore you were white.
Okay.
It's just so what I'm saying is, if you're going to write a character like that, and there's prejudices in these other countries, which, you know, listen, you want to go to Asia and you see how the Thais can't stand the Burmese can't stand the Koreans. They're all at each other. They're all like, you know, we're better than you, and our culture's better. It happens all over the world. So when you've got a country that has colonized the majority of the world, which was England, you can move more freely as a white guy throughout those countries because they ran all those countries for all those many years. So it wasn't unusual to see someone turn up like in Singapore if you were a white guy, right? So all I'm trying to say is you can write these characters. You can write new characters. We shouldn't be you know, it's to me, it's cheap to change it. Look, I'm not saying in the movies now, if you decided you wanted to have it like Idris play James Bond, he'd be amazing. He's a fantastic actor. He's got all the physicality, suave. He's got everything. All I'm saying is, why not write a new spy, right?
Yeah,
a new
why give Idris a hand-me-down? Here you go, little Idris. You can't make your own guy interesting. We'll give you what the white guy had. That's
and you know what? You know what? Let me just say this, because one of the reasons why I came away from theater was because I'd seen so many amazing actors play those roles in Shakespeare. And I'm like, and then there's me, and then I'm going to do it. And then Richard Harris has played it. And I was like, I don't want that. I want to have a new character. I want to bring a new character to life in film. That's what I wanted to do. So if you think about it, what we would have a bunch of people creating new material that everyone would love, right?
Right.
That everyone would love, and it would have these elements in. There's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? There's
but
no,
you said,
and we'd all embrace it, right?
but like you said, it's laziness. So lazy people aren't going to do that. And one of the cool things I was talking about with my daughter when we were hanging out is she was like, Dad, they remade that movie Mean Girls, and they made this character or black and this character gay, and Little Mermaid. She's like, I like Little Mermaid, but why did they make her black? And I don't. It's not like I bring my daughter in here and sit her next to me when I'm doing my videos and tell her all this stuff. She just, she picks it up by the way I live my life and the way I move in the world. And I don't give credence to that. I never tell her she's a victim or I'm a victim or anything like that. So it's good to hear, like you said, that maybe the pendulum is swinging and it takes that next generation to do that. But for you to take something that I enjoyed when I was young, and I've enjoyed it for years, and now I have children, and I want to look over to them and see the joy on their face when they enjoy the thing that I enjoyed when I was a kid, and that you take it and wipe your ass with it and change it on me. Why would you do that? There's a reason that I'm here to enjoy this form of entertainment, whether it be written or a movie or something like that, and you just totally changed it on me. Why would you do that to me? That's messed up for the consumer, and it's lazy on their part. Why can't you guys make something new like this? Come on, Superman forever, since George Reeves was playing him on TV, truth, justice, and the American way, and all of a sudden going to change it to truth, justice, and a better tomorrow? Why neuter that thing that I love?
I like my little picture there of me in sunglasses, and I like the quote. It's a bunch of fucking nonsense.
It is. Come on,
but here's the thing:
new.
you also
can I just tell you real quick
go
about that? When they gave me that script, and you're one of the new artists on Superman, I'm like, yes, I've been waiting my whole life. 12-year-old me would be so excited. This is the top of the mountain. Then I find out what we're doing. He's not the American way. His underage son is bisexual, and that is one of the major threads of the book. And it's just like, I don't care, gay, bisexual, whatever. I don't want sexuality, underage people anywhere near anything I'm working on.
Who wants to see that?
What the
Who
hell
wants
is wrong
that?
with you people?
Perverts.
So I left, and thank God. It's the best thing I've done. Let me read a super chat, and we'll keep going, though, real quick. Brandon Clark for 10. That's it. He just, for 10. Thank you, Brandon. And when you send one of those in, you always get one of these.
Brandon, he just lets his money talk.
I mean, we didn't name the show Double Impact for no reason, Matthew. We love Van Damme around here.
Oh
yeah, that shit's weird. The only person who's going to enjoy something like that, any kind of sexuality with kids, is some weirdo in his basement in the glow of his laptop with a bunch of crusty napkins around him. Perverts enjoy that kind of shit. Why would you target perverts? Why would you make something for perverted weirdos? Because they must be. All this stuff coming out about Diddy and all these people in that pervert producer of Nickelodeon, it's circumstantial evidence, but I see some smoke, and where there's smoke, there's flames.
Yeah,
this shit is disgusting, man. And there are people out there who are okay with that. And not only okay with that, one of the differences is there's always been perverts and weirdos, but they've never been promoted and celebrated and
emboldened
championed
as well. Emboldened.
Like, what? You have perverts and weirdos and sex workers on the lawn of the White House pulling their gross fake tits out? Since when did we cater to these people and celebrate the mentally ill? What happened? When did we flip-flop? And you have the overwhelming majority of the population who wants nothing to do with this, but they're steady jamming it down our throats. Like I mentioned, Kamala Harris somehow trying to make us believe that abortion it's cool. It's health care. It's just like you getting a checkup. Checkup, abortion, same thing.
Yeah, when did it become them up? Same thing.
Yeah, when did it become mainstream? When the hell did we start seeing drag queens who are sex workers reading to children? And who are the empty-headed ding-dongs bringing their children to it? It would be different if the weirdos showed up to an empty building and nobody came. But they're bringing their children. There was a school in Texas who took a field trip to a gay club.
Nope.
Yeah, it was in the middle of the day, but it was still a gay club, and some guy performed. What would you not be down there screeching into the school parking lot if you found out your kid just came from a field trip at a gay nightclub?
Can you
That's a
imagine?
problem, right?
Can you imagine? I mean, just going back 10 years, just 10 years, and saying that. Like if you got into a DeLorean and went back 10 years and you said, "Hey, listen, there's going to be this whole thing where there's like drag queen story hour where these grown men are going to dress up in, and they're going to dance like strippers in front of your kids, and if you say it's weird and you don't want it, you're going to be called a transphobe or anti-LGBT." You're like, what are you talking about? I don't understand.
They would say, what the hell is LGBTQ?
You wouldn't right. You wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want the drag person dance for kids. I don't want a regular woman stripper dancing.
Yeah.
For kids. I don't. None of this is okay for kids. Like, what the hell, dude? It's not about them being gay. It's you don't mix that with kids. Like, I can't believe we have to explain this to people. You know,
there's this little black kid named Lil RT. He's a little rapper, and he has a profile and stuff. And he's 9 years old. 9 years old. And there's a video circulating. There's like these black Instagram pages at Hollywood Unlocked, the Shade Room, that are kind of urban news or whatever. I hate that word, urban, but it's black entertainment, right? Heavy air quotes on entertainment. And there's a video of this little boy at a nightclub, already a problem. A little kid in a room full of adults who are drinking alcohol, disgusting. There's a woman, she bends over in front of him and she's twerking on this boy's crotch, a grown woman. And no one is grabbing her by her face and throwing her outside. They're cheering, and the little boy's rapping. When did that become okay? What if that was a grown man doing that to a little girl? Then would we have a problem? But this stuff is mainstream. Thousands of likes and comments, and some people are like, "Oh man, he's a little man's getting it," and all this. I thought that was child molestation. Maybe I am an old curmudgeon. Maybe I am old school and I can't get with the times. But if this is the times, I don't want to get with it.
Well, look, it's absent fathers, really, because if you look at that, it's the dad that's really going to step in and say, no, this is unacceptable. But I think that we've moved so far to this kind of let's get money. Money is what matters. So, I was having a conversation with my my 24-year-old, and it was funny because he said, "Dad, you got to say this. You got to go out." Do you remember in the 90s? In the 90s, I mean, it did start getting a little bit smutty in the 90s, but you had people like En Vogue, and they'd be singing like, about their man and how, what a man, he's got a body like Arnold. Like they really put men on a pedestal. They were like, that's my man, he's my thing, I love him and I'm going to take care of him. And then you look at a lot of the other songs going back the other way, she's my queen, in the R&B scene, it was very much like that, right? I mean, there was a little bit of funky stuff in there, but it was all about like, elevating the partner, right? Whichever one it was. It's not like that anymore at all. He went from that, like she's my queen, and there was I certainly saw it when I was out in a club. Like the women were very feminine, and the dudes were masculine. Even the way they conducted themselves. I mean, that's a massive generalization, but you know what I'm saying. And then you saw over the years, it just kind of got like weirder and weirder and weirder. And then it's that like people think that twerking is just something that's always been around. It wasn't. It's kind of weird. Like you say, it's old farts. It's like coming in our lifetime. And you look at that and WAP. I mean, insane. How was that?
Insane.
How was any record company like looking and thinking, I'm going to put that out? I mean, that is just.
I remember.
Yeah.
My kids are 27 and 25. I was picking them up from middle school. So this is, 15 years ago or so. I was picking them up 3 p.m. This is the part that pisses me off. 3 p.m. We get in the car, we're driving home, and the radio just happens to be on. I don't like rap music, but somehow it was on that station. And the lyric in the song was, "Eat the booty like groceries." I'm like, it is 3 p.m. Obviously, kids can hear this.
Yeah.
Turn the radio off. Like, what? How? How is that okay to like say that in public in front of kids? Like, I don't know. And this was 10 years ago at least, whenever they would have been in middle school. They're old now, but. I know what you're saying, Matthew. It's horrifying. And I think this conversation we're having right now has really inspired me to work even harder at my craft. Because, we're talking about kids being read to, all this perverted stuff. This is how I want kids being read to. There's the love of fathers and sons in this book. That's a heavy theme. There's talk of God and morality in this book, but we're not beating over the head and preaching. This is an action adventure. But here's the great thing about it. That grandfather, he could leave that book in the room with that kid. Matthew, you can give my book to your 8-year-old and you don't have to worry. There's nothing funny in here. Nothing. You know what I mean? And I just don't. It's demonic, if you ask me, with these songs and all that. I as a Mexican, I hate rap music because I see the two worst communities in America that are doing the worst are the Black and the Mexican community. The most crime, the most poverty, the most fatherlessness, and it's suffering. I'm not looking down at them. My heart breaks for them because I am Mexican. I know what my wife came from. I've heard of the trailer park on the Indian reservation where she lived when she was little. I used to live in a Mexican ghetto when I was at that college. That picture I showed you with the R2D2, the house next door got shot up. You know what I mean? Once we didn't have any money. And I know what that kind of music and that kind of mindset can do to people if they stay in it. That's why I abhor that kind of music and that entertainment. It's why I left DC, and it's why I'm making the things I make. And that's why I was so passionate about talking to you, because I see you, Matthew, always talking about this on Twitter, that we need patrons of the arts to make the good art, to influence people. There's scientific research that shows the strongest thing to persuade people, you can say brainwash, but that's not what I mean, is narrative. When you tell someone a fact, they're like, okay. When you tell them a fact, but it's laced inside of a story, your brain can't resist it. Your pattern recognition in your brain releases dopamine when you recognize patterns. It's a drug. So a well-written story is a pattern. A wonderfully written song, even if they're talking about eating a booty like groceries, but it's well-written, your brain will give you dopamine for that filth, and you will love it. And it will convince you that these horrible things are true. You should act this way. And so that's why we've got to get ahead of this as entertainers. That's why I'm so passionate about this and so happy that people like you think like this. Like, we got to replace their work.
Yeah, we
got to
have
be better
to.
than them. We have to be better than them.
Well, and we have the talent. People say that we don't have the talent because, for the most part, the quality of the stuff that's been put out is really bad. But that's not true. It's because, like, someone will watch this conversation and we're like, oh, those guys they spoke about race. I don't want any of that fire, I don't want to be a part. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the way it should be. We should all be able to talk about these things. Same thing if you drop the F-bomb. Really? That's the worst problem you have, is someone cursing. Really? I mean, for me, I know that I've got a bit of a potty mouth, as a Brit, we, growing up, it's just part of the language, right? It just is. And that's something I have to work on myself. But you'll see people decide not to give money and not to sponsor things because of silly things like that. And they might think they're big things, but normally with those kind of people, like I say, I know I'm a sinner. I know I've got a fallen nature. I know I make mistakes. I give the other people the same. I afford them, the same kind of grace as what I hope I'm getting. But we have the talent, and we just need people to back that talent. And even, like I said, click subscribe, right? Just click subscribe, because guess what? The more those numbers go up and up and up and up, the more influence you have, right? And what, for me, it is more than anything, is showing that people are willing to be involved. They're willing to lock arms with you and go into battle, right? That's what it's about, really. Because, you guys know, I mean, by the way, you do stand-up comedy, right, Jericho?
Not stand-up, but I am a bit of a comedian on my platform. Yes.
Right.
Well, comedy is the most difficult thing to do. It's by far the most difficult thing to do. So hats off to you for that. But we need to build one another. We need to be steadfast with one another. If we feel like one of us is going, off the rails on something, have a friendly conversation away from social media and go, hey, listen, brother, thought you were a little bit off there, man. I just want to be, and engage in a conversation, right? That shouldn't mean like, oh, dude, I'm on Twitter and I'm posting about, how I disagree with. It's not the way, right? We all have our moments. And I think, by the way, Gabe, you were talking about the Black and Hispanic communities. Liberal white women, they're the worst, dude.
The
And
worst.
actually, what like liberal men are such betas.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
it is shocking to me. It's
Right.
shocking. So there's enough shit to go around for every group, dude. It's like every single group has got their weaknesses. But what it takes, I do think the difference is, I mean, maybe for me uh, in Hollywood, it's kind of hard to stand up and say something. But man, I don't get called a traitor to my race if I stand up and say these kind of things, which I'm sure you two get that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know I've had other friends of mine. They'll be like, "Oh, you're white. What are you talking about? Like having morals and decency is a white thing. Like
No, I've
how
heard that.
low
Yeah,
is your
being on
expectation?
time and having a work ethic is white supremacy. I saw the headline that some
What?
liberal woman professor said that, and I'm like, that is so racist. I worked hard. I'm not
It's
white.
unbelievably racist.
I remember in high school, I was a sophomore in high school, and you get assigned this class when you're freshman, sophomore, senior. I don't know how they do it in England, but and it's the second year of the senior high. And instead of putting me in biology, they put me in a class called Avid. And everyone else in my other friends my age, they were in biology, and I didn't have biology on the first day of school. And I'm like, what the hell is Avid? In the class is all Mexicans and black kids. And it was a class on how to organize your binder, how to do your homework.
You gotta be
How,
kidding me.
and
You
I
are
went to
not
the
serious.
office and I said, put me in the fucking science class. I really like science, by the way. I don't need to know how to organize my binder. I didn't hit my head in the parking lot. I'm not an idiot. But
Yeah.
it was that the racist low expectations of these little brown kids. Here's how you zip your backpack, really? And it was because of race. It couldn't have not been because I looked around the class and that's what we all were. This is 1994, by the way. This is 30 years ago. They were doing this shit. So
Yeah. I remember I was in third grade and I got in a fight. I went to a predominantly white school. So yeah, there were issues like that. Some kid would say something racist to me, but usually it wasn't. But yeah, and as a kid, you don't fully understand that. You're just trying to say what you think is the most hurtful thing to that person. So a kid said something to me. We got into a fight. I beat him up. So I go to the principal's office and she tells me, she goes, instead of fighting, you should try to be more like Dr. King and turn the other cheek. So at 8 years old, I didn't really get it. So I got suspended and I go home and I tell my mom, and my mom goes, she said, what? And I repeated it because I didn't understand. I thought she was telling me to be like Dr. King. I'm like, she said, what? And I told her, she's like, oh no, we're going up to that school tomorrow.
Oh boy.
So her and my dad went up there and they wouldn't tell me what they talked about. I was sitting out in the office, where the secretary was, and they were in the office talking to the principal, and they never told me. But now that I'm an adult and I have kids of my own, I understand. Tell me no shit like that. Turn the other cheek. So I'm supposed to get beat up on the playground and turn
you
the
should
other
have
cheek
went
up?
back to the school talking like a preacher from the South.
I should have stood up on a milk crate. I have an ass whooping for you, man. I was like, hell no. I remember watching an after school special, and it was this black kid who moved into a new neighborhood. Somebody sprayed the N-word on his fence or something like that, and I remember thinking to myself, it was a total PSA, like a moment where he talked to the kid and they ended up being friends, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. If somebody tries, because it's not so much what you said, but you're trying to hurt me.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to do that. If you call me that word, it's on. Because I was a kid, I wasn't, my negotiation skills are, my critical, or what do they call it, CRT, conflict resolution team. My conflict resolution skills weren't that good. I figure if you say that to me, I'm gonna whoop your ass. I'm not gonna be the one. I'm not going to be a victim.
I hate to tell you, dude, I think that they're absolutely great, actually, because there's nothing wrong. Maybe I'm a little bit old school. Is like if someone does something like that, they deserve a smack in the mouth.
Yeah.
Because then they won't do it again. And look, like you said, I mean, there's nothing worse than being reduced to those, basic characteristics. It's very immature, actually, for someone to just look at you and go, hey, whatever the word is. But let's take you out of the environment a second. And that asshole would have said, hey, ginger, hey, big nose, hey, fatty, hey, whatever. Like that again it's to do with the individual. and they need to be taken care of. And it all comes from, like, if my kids ever got done for bullying, oh, they're going to get it worse when they come home.
Yeah.
Oh boy, like they would not want to go through that. And look, part and parcel of it as well is kids being, growing up and not understanding a lot of the time what they're saying, and they might hear other people. It's not as cut and dry as what you think. I mean, the actual act of doing it needs to be punished, right? But again, as parents, you do have to like sit down and ascertain why they said it, right? What was going on, and what was their process in their heads. And sometimes, just, well, like, Johnny so-and-so said it, so I said it. Like, well, that's not, and then it becomes a teachable moment, especially if you got a bloody lip. Because to me, it doesn't matter. Like, if those things are said, if you called someone a name and they smacked you in the mouth, it's your fault. Sorry.
Yeah. Now, if your kid is small and they're racist, you can get them this book, Anti-Racist Baby. This is a real book, by the way.
Babies are the worst racists of all. Their little goo goo gaga doesn't fool me.
Right.
Those are
I saw a baby doing Asian eyes once. I saw a baby doing all kinds of messed up stuff.
Yeah.
This is a real book.
That is
trying to teach a baby not to be racist.
That's like people who's I just saw a video yesterday of this lady. She was at a pride parade, strike number 1. She has a 15-month-old kid, and one of the other side of their head shaved, clam munchers said, what's her name? And the lady goes, their name is whatever, but they go by they them pronouns. A 15-month, this thing's still wearing diapers.
It's child abuse, that is.
That's disgusting. Again, who's taking their children to these events? Because to sell it as we're just getting together wanting equality for everybody. No, it's a live action porno for a whole month. Don't bullshit me. Why would you take your kids to that? That's disgusting. You're leading the lambs. You're like, Wolf, here's my little lamb, Wolf. The hell's wrong with these people? They, them pronouns for, oh man. People.
What it needs is it needs these conversations to happen. Unfortunately, you see a lot of cancellations, even on social media, whatever, they'll shut you down because you can't have real conversations. And again, what people will do is they'll take slices of things and they'll blow them out of proportion, and they'll say, oh, this is the wrong thing. And, this is in context with that. I mean, we've seen it with Trump all the time. He said it about the bloodbath thing. I'm like, he was totally talking about like the automobile industry, right? And he was, and they use it all the time. And by the way, there's countless examples of them saying the same thing about other things, right? So we know they're disingenuous. And I think that, again, with the pendulum swing, I am optimistic, because I think that they've become so emboldened. People are like, hang on a minute, I'm not buying this. Like when it costs you, $7 extra for something, don't tell me that the Biden economy is good, because it's not.
Bidenomics. Everything, the cost of living is going down. The insurance.
The electricity. Has your electricity gone up? Because mine's just like rocketed in Texas. It's just gone.
But when you put the inflation way up here, you can't take credit for bringing it down here, because you are the reason it was up there in the first damn place.
Yeah. That's another trick they pull. They say inflation is down. That doesn't mean prices are going down. That means they're going up still, just a little slower. So it still sucks.
I'm paying $4.79 for gas per gallon. And
wow. Where are you?
California, and we refine it here. We suck it out of the ground. We get all that liquid dinosaur out of the ground, refine it, and people in other states that we send it to are paying less for it than we are.
I escaped California, and I mean, even here though, I remember. How long have you been in California for? Are you from California?
Yeah, my whole life.
Okay, so you remember a few years ago, right? I'll never forget this, because I came there in 2000, right? I was back and forth for some time. And in 2000, I remember it went up from like $2 to like $2.10, $2.20 or whatever. And everyone lost their minds. Yep. And that was around because I remember, because in the UK, it's per liter, and it's about, I don't know, $7 a liter. $7 a gallon, right, over in the UK, right? And by the way, they've got all that North Sea gas, and they've got a bunch of stuff around there that it doesn't have to be that high. The gasoline prices. Remember when Gray Davis put the tax on the cars? Everyone was like, "Whoa, no!"
They recalled him.
They recalled
Davis
him.
got
It was
recalled.
like that.
And that's
It was
how we
like
got the
that,
governor.
dude.
We got the governor.
Yeah.
But now it's like boiling the frog, right? When I left, it was like $6. I was up in Pasadena, and I'm like,
about $5. It's about $5 here in San Diego.
It's just unbelievable.
I remember coming home on leave when I was in the Navy, and we stopped at a gas station. It was a Chevron gas station, and it said $1.94 a gallon, and I almost passed out. I was like, $1.94? Now I'd kill for $1.94.
Right? And there's no reason for it. There's absolutely no reason for it. Certainly here in Texas. Like I noticed the other day, it's regularly going over $3 a gallon. And when I moved here, it was way, way, way less. I think it was like about $2. Like
the environment, man. Got to do it for the environment and the birds, for the spotted snow owl, man.
Apart from the fact, this is. I mean, not to go on about it, but like, we need to go to renewables, right? So what we're going to do is going to build these giant wind farms that kill all these eagles, right? They're flying into.
Well, they're also ugly as shit. You're driving up I drove from San Diego up to where Jericho lives. I did it last month, and there's beautiful farmland. Matthew, you probably driven through it.
Yeah.
And they just fill it with those idiot windmills, and they're just so ugly. And
they're giant. And you know those things that, so what they do is they pay, this is what I heard, they pay the farmers X amount of dollars a month. But when the wind farm when the lease is over, they've got to get rid of those. They've got to get rid of them. So I don't know how they're gonna. Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna get rid of them, because I mean I don't know if you've ever been behind one of those.
Only like 300 feet tall, dude.
They're gigantic. One of the blades on the windmill is like 150 feet long. It's gigantic. What are you gonna do with it?
Well, and if you drive out to Vegas, you drive out, you go past Bakersfield, you go that way, and then you see that solar farm. It completely zaps the birds that are going through it because of the mirrors. It's like. It's like
me and my wife, we drive to Vegas all the time, and I call that the death ray. And I have one of those silly car games you play where you can't look at it or you lose because it's so bright. You want to turn and look at it, So we drive down the road and see if you could ignore the death ray.
It's crazy, and they care about the environment. Everybody should drive electric cars. Well, what about the 8-year-old African kid who's pulling cobalt out of the ground with his bare hands? But Black Lives Matter. They're full of shit.
Yeah, dude. You've seen those pictures, right? And it's true. It is like they've got 8-year-old black kids in Africa, like digging out by hand.
Children.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the whole thing is blatantly absurd, right?
And then when the battery isn't good anymore, does it turn into steam and just go up into the sky? No, it becomes a play structure for some poor kid in a third world country. This shit's disgusting. They don't give a damn.
Well, there's one thing I know about mining. They definitely don't have any like collateral pollution or an impact on the environment when they go mine deep into the earth.
And it's pretty easy work. I mean, those kids are out there having a great time in the African sun.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Time. I mean, it's just it's so hypocritical. And it's unbelievable.
Now, I want to get to this though. We'll get to this in a minute. I'll let you finish your thought, but we're gonna get to this.
Oh, Matt, dude.
Oh,
we're gonna get to this. Oh boy, yeah, we're gonna. But go ahead. We gotta let Matthew go here in a while. It's getting late over there in Texas. We've had him forever. You've been Matthew, wonderful guest. You have to come back. It's so much fun. So we didn't even talk about Rambo. We didn't even talk about Black Hawk Down. We didn't talk about you being an actor as much as we wanted to. Because action movies are the name of the game around here. So please come back.
Yeah, round two, man.
Well, we put the world to rights, right? We fixed everything while we were on.
Yeah, all good. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now pipe this to all world leaders. We figured it out. Thank you very much.
Diesel, he's a professional nose miner. There you go. Good job.
But he's a Raider fan, so
he's a Raider fan who lives in the Inland Empire. He's one of our favorites around here.
Yeah, so give him take whatever he says with a giant grain of salt. He's a Raider fan. It's not his fault. We all make mistakes. That's what I tell my son.
American football, Matthew? Do you like?
I do. Okay, yeah. Good. No, good. I do. I mean, I'm a big believer in support your local team, which was kind of difficult since first it was difficult in LA for a very long time. right? 'Cause
Right.
we
That's
didn't
my
have
team
one.
forever. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we got a bunch of them, and then I left. So yeah, I started watching American football. What do you call American football? A few years ago, and it was I was watching it at the same time I was learning about baseball, and it was actually a priest friend of mine said, "I'm going to teach you all about baseball." He said, "But my team never wins." Right? They've basically got to. So it was the Red Sox, and it was the
Okay.
year they won the World Series.
Oh, wow.
Was the first with Jason Varitek and all that, and that was my first year. So I was like, okay, well they've got to be my team, and then of course they did very well. And so I then picked up on the Patriots as well
Oh,
Yeah,
because that was, and then
they do pretty good.
they did
Yeah,
all
they
right
did.
for a bunch
Yeah,
of
they
years.
had a run. They had a little run there for a
But-
while.
20 years.
But
Tom Brady
now,
had the
yeah, no Brady. I mean, amazing. But you know what? Since I moved to Texas, I don't think I'm going to be going anywhere now. Like this is going to be it. So I have to follow the Cowboys. So I kind of follow. I know. But it's the local team.
How about them
So-
Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys?
I wish you were here, Matt, so you could reach and take that dagger from between my shoulder blades when you said the Cowboys.
You gotta
I
understand.
know.
He's a 49er fan, and that is one of the arch
Oh,
rivals. That would be
Yeah.
like if you said to me that you like the Kansas City Chiefs, I'd dump you off the show. I'm a Denver
Yeah,
Broncos
that's-
fan. How dare you make me mention the Kansas City Chiefs? How dare you?
That's like Bloods and Crips, man. Niners and
is that right? Yeah.
Cowboys.
Oh.
Yeah, it goes way back.
Niners, Cowboys, Chiefs, Broncos. Oof, no,
Yeah, but hey, you're in Texas, win in Rome.
You
got to
the
do it
Texans,
right.
They never win shit. You can follow the Houston Texans.
Yeah, if you want a team that doesn't do shit, you can get the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's they're right here. So, I mean, I'm not as I still watch the soccer over in Europe. You know, I mean, that's what I watch, even though people don't like it much.
So who's the rival of your team? Who's your team, and then who's their like spit in their face rival?
So people won't really know what my team is because now they're in the next division down. But their name's West Bromwich Albion, and their rivals are the Wolves, like Wolverhampton Wanderers. So that's really who their rivals are, and that's really bad. I mean, like it's said to be probably the second most aggressive rivalry in British football after Celtic and Rangers, and Celtic and Rangers are Catholic and Protestant rivalries. So it's pretty bad.
So if your son came home with a Wolf jersey, you'd contemplate changing his address.
Oh, he'd be in a lot of trouble.
Have a seat, son.
That's how you know your wife, Jericho. Now, this is going to put your marriage to the test. My wife, born in San Diego, family San Diego, Chargers, Broncos, rivals, hate each other.
Yeah.
We married. She's decked out in Bronco gear for the last 28 years. Kids are in Bronco gear. Hates the Chargers, makes fun of the Chargers with me to her mom and brothers and all that. That's a good woman. Jumped on my team instantly.
That's a good woman.
Is your wife a 49er fan?
No, she can't stand football. She doesn't understand it, wants nothing to do with it. She'll leave when I'm out in the garage watching the game. But that's fine. No team is better than picking, another team, because she knows if she were like the fan of the
Cowboys
or Cowboys
if your
or
son,
something like that.
If Jericho Jr. came home in a Dak Prescott jersey, what happens?
I'm going to see if we can fit all of his clothes in one bag because he's leaving.
By the way, can I just say there's a message on here. What is a baggie? Right?
What is a baggie?
All right, I've got to tell you that because that's the nickname of my team, the Baggies.
Oh boy.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's funny though because I set up a production company. Part of the production company was called Baggy Boys, and my buddy was like, "You can't call that because that means something different. Like a baggy means something different here." I'm like, "What does it mean?" I'm in my naive little head. I didn't know what a baggy was. So baggies, because the rumor is when they used to get the collection from the gate receipts from the game, they would walk around and carry the bags around, the bags of money around the field. So they called them the baggies. And then someone else says it's because they had big baggy shorts or whatever. Like nobody knows exactly, but they're called the baggies. So that's why it's called the baggies. Bit of trivia for you.
All right. I want to go to a big rivalry soccer game in South America and in Europe someday. Because although I don't like soccer like all good Americans, it looks insane. And the fandom looks so good.
Yeah.
Cool. And maybe I could learn to love soccer. I think we
You
don't
gotta
like soccer as
go.
Americans because we're not good at it.
Yeah, you got to go. No, well, you know what? And this is a funny thing that for the longest time, I wondered, like, why is it that America produces such great goalkeepers, right? Because they do. They've got a history of like terrific goalkeepers. Tim Flowers was one. Casey Keller was one. Like very, very good goalkeepers. And it's because all of your sports use your hands. And I never really thought about that. It's all catching balls.
Right.
Right.
Well, there was a famous, I don't know if do you know who Jim Rome is? He was a famous sports radio guy in Southern California.
Jim Rome.
That's right. Jim Rome was the phenomenon in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think he has a show on Twitter now. That's
he's huge.
But he was the biggest sportscaster in America. He was on like 1,000 stations. And he hated soccer because he was American. And he had this joke about soccer. He'd say, soccer's cool until you turn 7 years old and you learn to use your hands in sports. So
phenomenal.
Right.
Yeah, Jim Rome was the voice. But speaking of the voice, that clip you were going to show.
Let's bring it in. Let's get a little background on it. So what is this? Tell me if you can hear this first. Is there sound coming through?
No sound.
No sound. Let me
Oh my gosh.
Well, if you don't want me to show it, I don't
we go.
embarrass people. If you don't want me to show it, I sincerely
No, you can. No. I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't really talk about that part of my life much. Here we go.
Were you on TV by then, right? 98?
Yeah, so I'd done a couple of television shows and I signed a recording contract with Columbia Records, and this is a concert. This is the song I did with Destiny's Child. I mean, they weren't there for this one.
There we go. Sound.
The sync's a bit off on the sound.
No, I can't play too much because YouTube will
you'll get banned. Yeah, but that was like, it's kind of weird. This is the thing, man, about my kids. Like, I played in front of all these many people, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like watching a different person.
It had to be fun, right? I mean, you are a performer and all that.
Yeah, young man. I heard that girl
sounds
screaming.
like you could sing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You were just
now. Hold on. You're young. You could sing. You're good looking here. Were you married?
I wasn't.
Oh,
so does your wife hate this part of your life? Girls?
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. No, she doesn't. In fact, I actually, it's a funny thing that we found after I met her. And we were married. She was moving things out of her bedroom at her mum's house, at her parents' house, and she got a picture of me in there from that era, and she didn't like to put two and two together.
Oh, that's crazy!
Yeah.
Wow.
So who would you say, real quick? Who would you say is more fanatical, the music fans or the movie fans, or TV?
Man, that is that is a brilliant question. It depends, because I think that, music fans, for the most part, love the artist.
Right.
Movie fans love the movies. Right. I mean, they might like an actor, but really they're fans of the films, right? So you wouldn't say like Marvel fans are fans of Benedict Cumberbatch, for example. Like they don't follow him around. And then when it comes to television, the show I was in was massive. There was every night 19 million people in a country of 50 million people watched it.
So damn near half the country.
Was that Coronation Street?
Coronation Street. I couldn't walk down the street. It was insane for me.
Were you married when you did that?
No, that was mental. I mean, it was truly fame. Like it's very difficult to explain that level of fame. And in fact, when I came to the United States, I was in bigger stuff like this thing here, and Resident Evil and Rambo, which way I might like Resident Evil and Rambo, which were bigger projects. I was left alone, right? Because people don't really bother you. I think when you do films, for the most, unless you're like Leonardo DiCaprio, but I wasn't him. So there was definitely more fame with that, and then going through the music was pretty crazy. With the music, what's great, it's like theater because you get immediate feedback, right? You sing, they feed back to you. And it's funny because a lot of people don't know that I did it, don't know that I can sing. And every now and then, certainly since I've got this set up in my house, I'm like, shall I just do a song? Shall I just sing? Like, what what would that be like if I just, would it shock people? Because a lot of people don't know that I sang, and, you know, just thinking about doing a couple of Michael Bublé numbers. That I actually had a company come to me last year and they said, would you be interested in doing a Rat Pack Christmas and touring? And I was like,
Hell yeah.
that'd be
Sounds
awesome.
It
Yeah.
does sound awesome.
But
Can
it's
I,
difficult
Crazy.
when you
can I
see
have
how many people are there, Gabe. You see how many people are there. It's kind of difficult to step down from that. You know, once you've played concerts, and you know,
right.
you can see it at some point. You know how big.
Yeah, that's kind of a big
That's
crowd
thousands
there.
of people. That's
Yeah, it's
thousands
thousands
of
of
people.
people. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we did a tour, and there were thousands. And you know, I played in front of a bunch of people at in a stadium in Rotterdam, and then
All right, just a sec. I don't want to get any trouble from
it
you.
is. Someone said if I say it's I own the copyright. Well, it's my song, so I mean it's my recording. So,
Oh, okay,
but
well,
even YouTube have blocked me from owning my own video.
I lost my monetization for 3 months
That's
this fall. And I
crazy.
barely got it back in February, so I don't want to mess around.
Yeah, don't not
I
from,
accidentally posted some stuff, nothing bad, but it was another person's like Instagram reel that I thought was funny. And I, instead of just putting it on Twitter or whatever, I put it on YouTube like a dum-dum. And that's a no-no. I didn't know that. So I
yeah,
don't
well,
want to mess around.
people, you can. My album's on. If you guys want to hear it, some of it's a little bit cheesy because I had to bend the knee a little bit to the record company. But you can listen to my album on Spotify if you
Very
want to go on there. I discovered that it's on there. So the
Can
one
I-
with, huh?
Can I have a proud papa moment? My daughter, you were telling Jericho about stand-up comedy. You don't know this, Matthew. My daughter, the great Minnie El Taib, gave me my beautiful granddaughter, Ivy El Taib. She's 27 years old. She has been a stand-up comedian since she was 16 years old. She used to like to watch Saturday Night Live with me and her mom. And in high school, she was kind of struggling. She was like me in high school, smart, but got bad grades because I think sometimes when you're one of the smarter kids, you get bored. That's what happened to Jericho. It happened to me and stuff. And I got her into comedy. You know Pauly Shore, the comedian from
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Their family owns the Comedy Store like 3 miles from my house in San Diego, and the other one in Hollywood. They've owned it for 50, 30, 40 years, something like that. So I signed her up for comedy lessons when she was 16. She's been doing stand-up since then and improv and all that, the groundlings in Hollywood. Right now, she's on a 4 game winning streak of the roast battle. You've seen roast battle with Jeff Ross and all that. She's won the last 4. Headed to Hollywood tomorrow to do the 5th in a row. I think if she wins 2 more, she's like the champion for 2024.
Wow.
But she was just at the Comedy Store in La Jolla just now while we were doing this. And I was texting her and she told me she did great tonight. So my daughter is a stand-up and she's not politically correct and not a feminist comedian. She's just hilarious. And
it's
and
the most
Jericho
difficult
vouched for
thing
that.
to do.
Yeah.
To me, it's the most difficult thing to do as an artist. When I was doing my degree in performing arts, I didn't finish it. I left before the end because I was getting work. But when I was doing it, one of the modules you could do was, I mean, you could do like clown, which was commedia dell'arte and learning all about that. But you could also do stand-up. And I was like, there is no way that I'm doing stand-up. Like, not a chance. It's just terrifying to me. And I love great stand-up. I love Bill Burr. I mean, Bill Burr to me right now, and obviously to me, probably the greatest of all time is Chappelle. He's just on another level for me, for everybody else. But I love really great comedy. But you know, comedians they're realizing now that they're on the chopping block.
They're the truth tellers. They give us the ugly truth, but they make us laugh. So we need them to not be woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the ones who need to stay true to it and not drink the Kool-Aid because we look to them to push the envelope and kind of fight back against the establishment, quote unquote. Like they're they're on the front line, so we can't have them getting woke. And there's nothing worse than a woke comedian pandering to the audience.
It's not funny.
I heard someone say that woke comedians perform for applause, real comedians perform for laughs. I was like, there you go. That's exactly right.
Interesting.
But absolutely. But yeah, very proud dad that she goes up there and she kills. She's a great comedian. She slowed down a little bit because she had the baby a year ago. The baby's only 15 months old. Big baby. You don't know about big baby, Matthew.
No, I don't.
I am 6'4". I am 270 pounds, down from 300 this summer. And a 25-pound baby controls my life. Yeah. I'm overpowered by this little person. She's got me. She got me a headlock. Anything she wants. Yes. We're Best friends, me and the baby.
I thought
love
then you were saying like the baby was 25 pounds when she came out. I was like,
No,
that is
no.
probably the biggest baby of all
Yeah,
time. I think.
Minnie would take a whole lot of time off of comedy after that. Jeez.
No, she was a normal sized baby when she was born.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, she's the most wonderful person in my life. And as big and powerful as I am, I don't stand a chance against her. So that's just how it is.
She's
that's
your kryptonite. You should call it kryptonite.
That's how it be. Jericho predicted that. I think we all saw that coming, you know.
Yeah. So you're gonna be taken over by the tiniest human in the world. But
right.
Yeah, she's a beautiful little kid. It's cool to see her hitting her little milestones and stuff.
She knows how to make jokes. Like I was gonna hand her like a cookie, and I said no, and pulled it away. Like a week or two later, she was eating something, and she's like offer me a piece. And when I went to get it, she pulled it away and laughed at me. So like, I think she has natural comedic timing. This kid.
How do you like that?
But yeah, I love her.
Great.
She's the best.
We sure appreciate you, Matt. We really.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, please come back. I'll let you go. I have to do that thing that parents and grandparents and all that do now that I'm a grandfather. I have to do that annoying thing that I promise I'll let you go because you've been so generous with your time. It's late where you are. Can I find it? Oh God, let me find it here. What? Did I time out?
No.
Oh.
It's funny because we were like, well, we'll be on for an hour.
The conversation
right. No, it's great.
Flies.
I mean, I love good people. I love being around good people, and every now and then you meet your people, and you're like, this is great. It's like we're all in the same room having a beer, right? And putting the world to rights and just being human beings together, which I think that again we've been
her birthday. Now this is destiny, Matthew. Well, I promise I'll let you go by at least tomorrow. My favorite American artist guy is Walt Disney. He was so patriotic. When they made family beautiful entertainment, nobody did it better in the old days. Sleeping Beauty, all that. What he did for the world before these evil people took over his company was so beautiful. My granddaughter, her birthday is Walt Disney's birthday.
Oh.
So we took her there on December 5th, and I got her the hat and everything. And look, I got a Bucky shirt representing Texas.
Represent Bucky's.
Right. But this person currently rules my life. So
well, if you're gonna have someone rule your life, let it be that little person.
And that's why I want to be a dad, and I want to be an artist that makes beautiful art for her. I can be proud of it and show it to her, inspire her. For your kids, you guys, kids can read my book and all that. And hopefully, Matthew, you'll start making more movies that are just awesome, high quality, that give these great values, man. So let's keep doing it. Let's stick together. Let's talk again. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. And it was last minute too, And
I hope I have another channel where I do, what I call conversations with people. So I'd love to have you on, if we carve out the time and definitely talk a little more about your movies and stuff and your Hollywood career and TV. And we definitely got to dive a little bit deeper into that singing career of yours, because I bet that shit was crazy.
Well, I'd love to do it. So yeah.
Anything you want to plug for the people in the chat that they need to subscribe to or check out that you're doing? Where you're on YouTube just under your name, or?
Yeah, Matthew D. Marsden. If anyone's watching Matthew D. Marsden on YouTube, I'd really appreciate the subs.
Subscribe.
Just getting off. I do like so far. I've done like a handful of videos. I did one on the Shroud of Turin. If you're interested in that, it's really, really fascinating. I did one the other day on Tolkien. I got a friend of mine who's a Tolkien expert. So, and I went to the same school as Tolkien. So I talk about that. And again, how they tried to change things in, why it didn't work. And I have one with a war hero called Trevor Colt, who's an amazing person. He's a good friend of mine. Got the Military Cross for Valor. So, I'm trying to do a nice broad base for people and talk about things as they come up, and not shy away from them, have real conversations. And because I think that it's very easy to demonize people, certainly if you talk about the difficult subjects, and we shouldn't shy away from them, right? Because that's what they use to control us. You know what I mean? That's what they use to control us. So I'm all for having conversations. I'd love to come on your show, Jericho. That'd be terrific. As you can hear, like, you have no kids. You can't hear any kids right now. So so they're all in bed. So actually late is good for me. So
yeah, I just subscribed to the channel. Hold on,
there's a link right there, guys.
Nice.
It adds featured to the end, but don't worry, that'll still take you to his channel. He's on Twitter.
Yeah.
Are you on Twitter and Instagram just under your name, right? Nothing funny.
It's Matthew D. Marsden on Twitter as
There
well.
we go.
Okay.
Just subscribe to the channel, and I'll follow you on
Right.
Instagram as well. And yeah, man, I'd love to sit down with you and have a great conversation, and give
All
people
right.
quality entertainment. So thank you, man, very much.
Roger that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
dude. Have a great night, deep in the heart of Texas, and eat some Bucky's barbecue for me because I miss that badly. It's
Right on.
it's
Right
delicious.
on. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you
Good
guys for
night.
watching. Hit the like, subscribe, share. Bye bye.
Peace.